Chapter 9:36. What's that? The air between heaven and earth seemed to have fallen into a state of stillness. The people gathered outside the Thunder Saint Palace all widened their eyes, and even the blood in their bodies was slightly restless. Pairs of eyes filled with disbelief were all focused on the peerlessly imposing stairway leading to the Thunder Saint Palace's mountain gate. He actually really came, shock and astonishment. Even though it was within reason, the appearance of that figure was like a raging tsunami, causing people's hearts to tremble. Chu Hen was dressed in black. His angular figure looked slightly thin, and the firm lines on his face seemed to have been carved with a knife. His handsomeness carried a cold, demonic charm. The draining god spear was held diagonally behind his back, and the tip of the spear dragged along the steps, leaving a straight and deep mark on the bluestone floor. One step, one spear for each person. Under his calm aura, an unconcealable, unparalleled sharpness. His appearance was like the bright moon in the night sky. This man, who had caused the fall of 2 peak forces in less than 2 months and slaughtered the lives of millions of people, was now holding a cold spear as he directly stepped onto this giant sect that everyone revered. After the fall of Innocence Valley and the Heaven Dynasty, the Thunder Saint Palace opened its doors and arrogantly challenged Chu Hen. And now, it was Chu Hen's most powerful counterattack. Ta-ta-ta. With every step Chu Hen takes, a dull and powerful sound will be emitted. The draining god spear's mark extended from the foot of the mountain all the way up. Following Chu Hen's appearance, the many disciples lining the 2 sides of the Thunder Saint Palace couldn't help but reveal some shock and coldness. He really came. Dong! The melodious sound of a bell reverberated inside and outside the Thunder Saint Palace. The sound of the bell was like a warning that a storm was coming, and also like the Thunder Saint Palace's announcement that the turmoil that had lasted for a long time was about to end outside the mountain gate. The many busybodies hiding in the dark were all restless and unable to stand steadily. What a nerve-wracking moment. I really wish I could stand on the Thunder Saint Palace's Divine Thunder Arena right now. The Divine Thunder platform is probably full of people now. It's a pity that we can't witness the end of this turmoil with our own eyes. Although they were all outsiders, Chu Hen's influence was enough to shake the entire province. Everyone hoped to see the province's disaster end with their own eyes. In the Eastern Victory Province, the Thunder Saint Palace was a colossus that absolutely could not be shaken by anyone. However, since Chu Hen dared to appear here, perhaps there was an extremely small chance that an unforeseen change would occur. The main peak, Divine Thunder Platform. The majestic main peak was incomparably magnificent, like an ancient heavenly peak of the gods. The vast Divine Thunder Arena took up about 1/3 of the entire peak. It was just like a grand plaza built under the heavens. At this moment, numerous figures with sharp auras had already gathered on the Divine Lightning stage. The crowd was spread out on both sides of the Tao platform square, each of them exuding an aura that was like that of a god or a devil, causing others to feel fear and dread. The atmosphere in the air was almost frozen. Every minute and second seemed to be extraordinarily long. At the center of the Divine Thunder platform square, steps were stacked up, forming a central high platform. There was a stone chair on the high platform. The stone chair was rather tall, and there were all sorts of exquisite and complicated patterns carved on it. However, the stone chair that symbolized supreme power was currently empty. Even so, there seemed to be an invisible, majestic aura emanating from it. There were a couple of upper echelon elders standing on both sides of the stone chair. All of their eyes were sharp like eagles waiting for their prey to appear. There were 2 relatively dim figures in the crowd with a stern aura, Lei Jixin and Lei Xiaolan. They were the only 2 people from the Thunder Saint Palace who survived the battle in the Xian Chakra Sky region. Compared to their former peerless beauty, aloof, and cold arrogance, the 2 of them now had much weaker temperament. This was especially so for Lei Jixin. She possessed the sacred lightning body and was once known as the proudest daughter of heaven in the province. Her eyes, which used to look down on everything, now seemed a little slack and dim. Ta-ta-ta. The increasingly clear sound of footsteps came from the mountain gate in front of them. Lei Jixin's heart couldn't help but tremble. She couldn't help but clench her fists tightly. Her gaze was fixed on the stone stairway leading down the mountain in front of the divine thunder platform. The heavy footsteps were like a heavy hammer pounding on her heart. The sound of the draining god spear dragging on the ground was especially unsettling. He's here? He really dares to come to the Thunder Saint Palace? Lei Jixin's fingernails dug deep into the flesh of her palm. Zong! When the draining god spear swept across the last step, a layer of sparks appeared in the air. A young figure exuding a frosty aura stepped straight onto the main peak of the Thunder Saint Palace. One person against 10,000. He came to the Thunder Saint Palace alone, cold, solemn, and deathly silent. Pairs of sword-like eyes were like thousands of heart-piercing arrows as they gathered on Chu Hen. If it was anyone else in this situation, they would tremble from the bottom of their heart. They wouldn't even dare to take another step forward. With so many experts, just their gazes seemed to be able to kill everything. However, Chu Hen's eyes didn't move at all. He walked step by step towards the center of the divine thunder platform. He's really here. Lei Jixin's delicate body couldn't help but tremble as she looked at the slender figure in front of her. The moment she saw Chu Hen, the scene that happened in Xian Kshetra region appeared in her mind once again. It was deeply imprinted in her soul. Lei Mingho was chopped into pieces. She, the proud woman who didn't care about any man, was humiliated in front of everyone. Until now, she still couldn't forget the coldness and dryness of Chu Hen's lips. The moment she saw Chu Hen, the humiliation in her heart surged. Hatred, resentment. It made Lei Jixin's eyes redden. However, Chu Hen didn't seem to look at her at all. Under the gaze of the people on both sides, he barged through the plaza and stepped onto the divine thunder platform in the center. Then he raised his gaze, and a low yet powerful voice pierced everyone's eardrums like a sharp sword. "I, Chu Hen, am here. I, Chu Hen, am here." His cold words couldn't hide the coldness in them. If the Thunder Saint Palace's formation was to announce the end of the turmoil that had lasted for a long time, then the coldness that Chu Hen emitted seemed to be announcing the arrival of a storm. Chi. As soon as he finished speaking, a layer of brilliant lightning suddenly floated on the stone chair in the center of the divine thunder platform. The lightning intertwined and formed a figure out of thin air. Then, a middle-aged man with calm eyes sat sideways on the stone chair like a god. The middle-aged man sat sideways with one hand on the armrest of the stone chair. His fingers gently stroked his chin and lower lip. His brows exuded an innate supreme aura, as if he was a monarch who looked down on the ostentatious world. The Palace Master of the Thunder Saint Palace. Chapter 9:37. Wah! An invisible wave of air spread out from the divine lightning stage's central platform. Lightning flashed and light patterns flowed. A figure that seemed to be in control of the world appeared out of thin air on the stone chair at the center of the stage. There seemed to be a faint and low sound of air patterns fluctuating between heaven and earth. In an instant, while everyone looked at Chu Hen with cold and indifferent eyes, they immediately looked at the figure on the stone chair with reverence and respect. The Palace Master of the Thunder Saint Palace. Leisha, a figure that everyone in the victorious Dongxing Prefecture did not know of. You are the first person in history to have my Thunder Saint Palace welcome you in such a manner. Leisha leaned sideways on the stone chair. His calm eyes revealed neither joy nor anger. Chu Hen stood below the stage, his back as straight as the spear in his hand. Their gazes met, and Chu Hen did not dodge at all. Perhaps I should feel honored? His frivolous tone was tinged with mockery. The surrounding people all frowned, and their faces were cold and gloomy. To be honest, they really couldn't figure out where this extremely arrogant thing in front of them had the confidence to mock their Thunder Saint Palace. Could it be because of those demonic beasts? The corners of Leisha's mouth rose slightly, forming an arc that was not a smile. Seventh level of the sky, profound realm. To reach this level at such a young age, how rare. Shida Changkong's death was not undeserved. What? Seventh level of the sky, profound realm. When they heard Leisure reveal Chu Hen's cultivation in one go, everyone's faces couldn't help but change. How was this possible? How long had it been since the end of the ancient desolate heaven region? In the vast victorious Dongshan Prefecture, not to mention ordinary people, even a number of outstanding geniuses who could reach the sky profound realm before the age of 30 could be counted on one's fingers. When Lei Mingho reached the sky profound realm in his 20s, he was known as the number one in the prefecture. From the looks of it, Chu Hen had left Lei Mingho in the dust. Even if the latter did not die, he would not be able to raise his head in front of Chu Hen. What a terrifying talent! Killing intent surged in the eyes of everyone from the Thunder Saint Palace. Fortunately, Chu Hen came today. Otherwise, if such a disaster was left outside, it would really be a huge threat. Chu Hen's expression remained calm despite the emotional changes of the people around him. Leisure, on the other hand, was somewhat interested. To be honest, it's really a pity to kill you like this. No matter if it's your courage or your talent, I have a whole new level of respect for you. Hearing this, everyone's hearts skipped a beat. Immediately after, Leisure spat out even more startling words. Since you've killed Lei Mingho, why don't you take his place, Hua? Surprise and astonishment. No one would have thought that Leisure would say something like this. Letting Chu Hen replace Lei Mingho, didn't this mean that he wanted to recruit Chu Hen into the Thunder Saint Palace? Not only would their previous grievances be written off, but Chu Hen would also be heavily nurtured by the Thunder Saint Palace in the future. Apart from being shocked, everyone couldn't help but admire Leisure a little more. After all, just one Chu Hen had the ability to destroy a first-rate force. If such a talent could be used by the Thunder Saint Palace, given time, how heaven-defying would it be? Compared to that, obtaining Chu Hen was a lot more than what they had lost before. It had to be said that Leisure's chess move was really exquisite. The two people's eyes met in the air, and Leisure's eyes revealed the majestic confidence of being in control of everything. Oh! Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows raised slightly, and he replied indifferently. And then, but hearing Chu Hen's reply, Leisure couldn't help but reveal a meaningful smile. As long as you agree to join my Thunder Saint Palace, not only will I give you a high position, I will also betroth Jixin to you and help you achieve great things. What? Hearing this, Lei Jixin, who was standing beside Leisure, suddenly turned pale. She looked at the palace lord in disbelief. He was both shocked and indescribably touched. Marry Chu Hen? How is that possible? That despicable man was a demon who had humiliated her in front of countless people. She couldn't wait to kill him. Lei Jixin couldn't understand Leisure anymore. In fact, there weren't many people in the entire Thunder Saint Palace who could figure out Leisure's intentions. But it was undeniable that the conditions that Leisure gave to Chu Hen were so good that no one was willing to refuse. Thunder Saint Palace was one of the three great forces in the Eastern Victory State. It was a place where everyone fought to get in. As long as Chu Hen nodded, he could enjoy great power and hug beauties. Then Chu Hen smiled, and his smile was especially sarcastic. Just this, and you want me to be your Thunder Saint Palace's dog? Leisure's expression was also very calm. He slowly stood up, raised both his arms, and looked like a king who ruled over the world. Then what do you want? Very simple. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He raised the draining god spear in his hand, pointed it at Leisure, and said word by word, "You come down, I'll sit on it." Impudent. You dare to be rude to the palace lord. Stupid thing. Don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. As soon as he finished speaking, all the elders and disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace were quite angry. Each of them burst out with an aura like a wild wave, as if they wanted to drown Chu Hen in it. Chu Hen's figure did not move, and the spear did not move. His eyes were still staring coldly at Leisure. I've always admired ambitious people. If you want to replace me, after I abdicate, I can give it to you. Leisure replied calmly. His gaze was full of importance, like a magnanimous king looking at a virtuous minister in the throne room. No one could bear to refuse this wise and virtuous ruler. Even so, the trace of mockery in Chu Hen's eyes did not fade, but became even more intense. The killing intent under your fake appearance is too obvious. The atmosphere began to tense up, and the smile on Leija's face gradually faded. Chu Hen's torchlight gaze was like a sharp sword, as if it had the magic to see into the depths of people's hearts. All you want is the heart of the black killer divine thunder. You want to dig out all the secrets hidden in my body. You want to capture me without wasting a single soldier, so that the world can praise the wisdom of the Thunder Saint Palace's palace master. Unfortunately, you almost succeeded. The killing intent behind your hypocritical expression made the last bit of mercy I had for you turn into nothingness. Every word was like a pearl, and every single one of them hit the nail on the head. Chu Hen mercilessly tore off the other party's fake mask. In an instant, Leija's eyes were as cold as the icicles under the eaves on a snowy day. Isn't it good to be a dog of my Thunder Saint Palace? Buzz. Along with the sound of his voice, endless killing intent extended like a torrent, and the surrounding people instantly turned into Azuras, bursting out with a fierce and cold aura. Chapter 9:38. Wouldn't it be better to be a dog of my Thunder Saint Palace? There was a mocking sneer and a cold look in his eyes. In an instant, the frozen atmosphere was instantly broken. Along with Leija's voice, Chu Hen was like a lone boat in the middle of a monstrous wave. The black tide surged in all directions, and it was dark in all directions. One after another, ferocious beast-like figures rushed towards the other party. It was about to start. Leija turned around and sat quietly on the stone chair, his face indifferent and calm. Figures with rising killing intent launched a fierce attack. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He leaned to the side and raised his hand to send out the dripping spirit spear. Hiss! A series of spear shadows flashed, and the sharp spear instantly pierced through the chest of a Thunder Saint Palace disciple. Blood splattered, and the tip of the spear directly rushed out of the disciple's back. Chu Hen's feet moved, and while avoiding attacks from both sides, he immediately flashed behind the disciple and grabbed the tip of the dripping spirit spear, causing the whole spear to pass through the disciple's body. In an instant, one person was killed. Chu Hen waved the spear again, and the momentum was like a dragon coming out of the sea. A thick black light spread out, and the spears swept out. Bang, bang, bang. A row of more than 10 people were directly smashed to the ground, vomiting blood. Bastard, don't be presumptuous. A thunderous roar shook the earth. An old man with a sharp body suddenly burst out with a majestic aura like that of a mountain. I am the second elder of the Thunder Saint Palace, and today I will take your life. The second elder of the Thunder Saint Palace had a powerful cultivation of the 7th level of the Sky Profound Realm. However, he had entered this level for many years, and naturally had an advantage over Wu Xiao, who had just reached the 7th level of the Sky Profound Realm. Thunder Rain Needle. The second elder let out a loud shout. Then, he leapt into the air and arrived above Chu Hen in a flash. He stretched out both of his palms, and a ball of lightning flashed in his palms. Countless silver lightning needles fell down at an extremely fast speed, explosively attacking. Countless thunder and lightning needles were like a torrential rain of pear blossoms. His speed was extremely fast, and his attacks were extremely strong. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. A wave of air surged from his feet, and he immediately flashed away. Chi, chi, chi. The bricks were pierced through, and numerous tiny holes appeared on the ground. Each of these seemingly tiny lightning needles actually possessed terrifying, penetrative, and lethal power. Once hit, it would definitely not feel good. If you want to hide, I'll make sure you have nowhere to run. Then, another middle-aged man with an equally strong aura flashed over. Although the middle-aged man's aura wasn't as dense as the second elder's, it had reached the same level as the second elder, the 7th level of the Sky Profound Realm. The middle-aged man put his palms together and stared at Chu Hen with a flash of electricity in his eyes. An astonishing aura burst out from his body. Profound Thunder Pillar. Boom! In the next moment, the tiles on the ground around Chu Hen burst open. Dazzling and strong thunder pillars, such as the brilliant god tree that broke through the soil, appeared one after another. The thunder and lightning pillars formed a circle, like a trapped beast cage, and instantly sealed all of Chu Hen's escape routes. Ha! Well done, the second elder sneered, and an even stronger aura than before shrouded Chu Hen. Thunder rain needle. Swish, swish, swish. Thousands of thunder and lightning needles covered the sky and the earth, carrying a thick thread of death as they attacked Chu Hen, who was trapped in a narrow area with such a dense attack and the restriction of moving space. No matter how fast he was, it was impossible for him to escape. However, there was not the slightest hint of panic on Chu Hen's face. He suddenly raised the draining god spear in his hand, pointed it down, and stabbed the ground. Bang! Rubble flew everywhere, and the ground cracked. Roar! Accompanied by a vigorous and ferocious beast's roar, a monstrous black light burst out in all directions with Chu Hen as the center. It was as if a huge lotus had bloomed on the ground. At the same time that the lightning pillar that had sealed Chu Hen's path of retreat was broken apart, a sinister and frightening ancient lizard dragon shadow, which was covered in black scales, instantly appeared in everyone's eyes. The lizard dragon's wings folded, and like a protective divine beast, it protected Chu Hen under its body. The dense thunder rain needles were like a deep quagmire. Although they could penetrate the ancient lizard dragon's body, they were not enough to penetrate the front and back and touch Chu Hen. I didn't expect the power of the draining god spear to become so strong. Then I will accept it on behalf of the Heaven Unified Dynasty. As soon as he finished speaking, the middle-aged man who cooperated with the second elder to use the profound thunder pillar suddenly flashed down, and at the same time, his arms were covered with layers of manic electric arcs. Flash cut blade. Chi! His hand turned into an incomparably sharp lightning blade, and like a divine blade that could cut through iron like mud, it split open a layer of black waves and directly tore apart the body of the ancient lizard dragon that was protecting Chu Hen. The experts of the Thunder Saint Palace were as numerous as the clouds. Powerful cultivators could be found everywhere, and the attacks they launched also came one after another. The moment they made their move, they had the imposing manner of wanting to push Chu Hen into the abyss. The ancient lizard dragon that was formed from power was like a broken wall. The middle-aged man revealed a disdainful sneer, and then his other hand burst out with thousands of dazzling spirit patterns. Dragon capturing Thunder Hand. The powerful Thunder Saint Palace's secret technique was displayed. The middle-aged man's entire arm rapidly expanded, and his veins and muscles bulged, flickering with dazzling silver arcs. It was like a grafted hand of thunder and lightning. Rumble. Wind and thunder moved together, and the opponent's hand of thunder and lightning directly pulled the draining god spear from Chu Hen's hand into his palm. In the blink of an eye, the Thunder Saint Palace's members all revealed looks of disdain. The middle-aged man also sneered proudly. "This spear is mine. Out of gratitude to you, I will leave your corpse intact." Chu Hen's eyelids twitched slightly, and a trace of mockery appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Not a bad idea, but do you really have the ability to move it?" As soon as these words came out, the hearts of Lei Jixin and Lei Xiaolan, who were on the high platform in the center of the divine lightning arena, suddenly shrank. "Not good. Let go." Before the words of warning could come out of their mouths, the draining god spear suddenly flickered with a silver-white light. The long spear rapidly shortened, and the heavy and ferocious spear body immediately became sharp and light. "This is?" The middle-aged man was startled, and the weapon in his hand suddenly transformed into a light saber that was as straight as a sword. In the next second, a slender and powerful hand instantly grasped the other end of the saber hilt. Hiss! A series of blood spurted out, and the middle-aged man's eyes immediately widened. His expression changed drastically, and the sharp pain caused all the nerves in his body to tense up. Half of his palm was cut off. Fourth Elder, the expressions of the Thunder Saint Palace's members all changed, and they were horrified. "Zong!" Then, a slight tremor stacked up, and the light of death flashed in front of the middle-aged man's eyes. Afterimages appeared in the air, and Chu Hen's figure directly flashed behind the middle-aged man. At the same time, the Tianai saber mercilessly slashed across the middle-aged man's neck. Chapter 9:39. Fourth Elder. Amidst the panicked cries of the crowd, Chu Hen pushed his saber forward. The cold saber light instantly chopped off half of the middle-aged man's palm, and even his neck. Warm blood gushed out like a fountain. A round head flew out along with the severed palm. Shing! The Tianai saber let out a resonant cry of death. Chu Hen turned into a flickering shadow, his cold aura intimidating everyone present. The kill was completed in an instant. Different realms of the same level. Even though the opponent cultivation was also at the 7th level of the Sky Profound Realm, to Chu Hen, it was just a matter of being killed in an instant. Bastard, you dare to kill him. I'll skin you, bastard. The second elder was furious, his eyes red with anger. The surrounding people were also shocked and furious. They all burst out with powerful auras, like ferocious beasts pouncing on their prey, attacking Chu Hen from all sides. Facing this menacing attack from all sides, Chu Hen raised his head slightly, his eyes flashing with a deep cold light. Dragging the Tianai saber, he directly charged into the crowd and started a massacre. Crackle, streaks of narrow, sharp black lightning covered the Tianai saber. Chu Hen's aura was like a fierce tiger descending the mountain, a flood dragon entering the sea, every slash drawing blood, every move taking a life. The lightning-fast saber light was like a fleeting shadow, quickly harvesting the lives of the Thunder Saint Palace experts. Lowly bastard die. A disciple of the Thunder Saint Palace attacked with a spear in his hand. The sharp spear was like a bolt of lightning flashing through the air. It suddenly pierced forward, straight towards Chu Hen's heart. Humph. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes, a cold smile appearing on his face. He flipped his wrist upwards, and the gorgeous blade slashed out vertically. The two collided, and the opponent's spear was like a bamboo pole meeting a divine blade. It was actually split from the tip of the spear. It truly cut through iron like mud. The Thunder Saint Palace disciple was horrified. Compared to the Tianai saber in Chu Hen's hand, the weapon in his hand was like mud, without any chance to dodge, the holy sword flashing with black electric arcs slashed down. Shrill screams rang out one after another. First, an arm was cut in half. Then his entire body was cut in half by the merciless blade light. Blood splattered on the divine thunder platform. Alone, stained with the blood of 10,000 people, Chu Hen wandered freely in this dense mass of enemies. Wherever he went, a rain of blood splattered and limbs flew. Endless murderous aura filled the sky and the earth, becoming more and more intense. On the high platform in the center of the divine thunder platform, Lei Jixin's emotions had never relaxed. The scene in front of her seemed familiar. The situation in the Xian Kshetra region 2 months ago was very similar to the current situation. 1 against 100, 1 against 1,000, challenging 10,000 people alone. At this very moment, Lei Jixin's mind couldn't help but recall the scene she saw when Chu Hen used an illusion technique to attack her mind. In the illusion, the entire Thunder Saint Palace was covered in blood and razed to the ground. The overshadowed Qianquan land was dyed in blood, and bones were piled up like mountains. Miss Lei, as you wish, the Thunder Saint Palace that you're so proud of will be exactly the same as what you see now. At that time, Chu Hen's words directly caused Lei Jixin's psychological defense to completely collapse. Today, the man who was like a nightmare had really come. An inexplicable sense of unease made Lei Jixin's expression exceptionally ugly. Impossible. With his ability, it's impossible for him to leave alive. Lei Jixin thought to herself. Lei Jixin secretly said. She was very clear about how strong the Thunder Saint Palace was. Not to mention a 7th-level sky, profound realm Chu Hen. Even if there were 10 of him, it would still be difficult for them to escape death today. Thinking of this, Lei Xin felt slightly relieved. Then, she subconsciously looked at Palace Master Leisha. She saw that the latter was still sitting on the stone throne with a calm expression. He didn't even frown, which once again soothed the unease in her heart. There was no doubt that the Thunder Saint Palace was powerful, but Chu Hen's unruliness was equally unbridled. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 people died in the hands of Chu Hen. Bang! Bang! Blade light and sword shadows, true essence surged. Waves after waves of biting cold energy attacked from all directions. Chu Hen soared into the sky. Both of his hands held onto the blade, and a raging wave of power swept out. Slash! Buzz! With a shout, a blade light that was more than 100 meters long descended with the power to split the sky and split the earth. Boom! The blade shocked the heavens, shaking the mountains and rivers. The space trembled, and wherever the blade light went, figures were chopped into pieces. The surging blade waves surged out from the left and right sides, and a wide ravine suddenly appeared in the square below. Evil creature, don't be presumptuous. The second elder, who was waiting for an opportunity, had a cold glint in his eyes, and an incomparably violent and restless aura pressed down from the sky. Clang! 3,000 lightning strikes. The wind and clouds roared. Rolling dark clouds covered the sky, and then more than a dozen strong lightning bolts descended from the sky, like a startling rainbow piercing through the sky. More than a dozen lightning bolts rapidly converged together, and the burst of light lit up the heaven and earth. In a split second, an incomparably huge bolt of lightning appeared above Chu Hen's head, as if it was a heavenly punishment from the heavens. The second elder of the Thunder Saint Palace actually turned into a beam of light and charged into the majestic bolt of lightning, fusing with it as one. Thunder and lightning rise. The intimidating sound made everyone's eardrums ache. Immediately afterward, the earth-shattering huge lightning bolt set off a dense destructive aura and fiercely blasted down on Chu Hen. The terrifying pressure made everyone's blood boil and their minds tremble. The second elder's attack was enough to kill an expert of the same level as him. Annihilate. The second elder, who had merged with the lightning bolt, sneered with a sinister look in his eyes. Looking at the sky that was comparable to the descending heavenly pillar lightning punishment, Chu Hen's heart moved. A purple light flickered in his deep eyes. Hua! Airwaves stacked up, and a layer of dense purple demonic flames immediately spilled out and climbed onto the blade's body. In an instant, the T&I blade released a purple shadow, and a solid phantom of the blade extended and expanded, turning into a dozen meters long. It was as if Chu Hen was holding a giant blade in his hand. Roar! There seemed to be a ferocious tiger roaring between heaven and earth. Chu Hen dragged the giant purple shadow blade with both hands, and from bottom to top, he slashed horizontally, facing the huge lightning bolt head-on. A series of afterimages swept through the air. A silver and a purple light flashed in the void, like two divine rainbows that had unexpectedly met. Clang! A deafening explosion resounded through the sky, and thousands of sparks and fiery rain bloomed between the two of them. Circles of vigorous light waves swept out, causing the mountains and rivers to tremble, and many luxurious and imposing buildings began to crack. Boom! What followed was the sound of thunder and lightning energy being cut off. Everyone's faces changed because of this. The T&I blade in Chu Hen's hand, which had transformed into a huge purple shadow blade, had actually embedded itself into the shocking lightning pillar. Crack! Sparks flew, and electric arcs flew everywhere. This powerful lightning bolt that contained terrifying destructive power was cut apart layer by layer, and was cut off inch by inch. What? The second elder of the Thunder Saint Palace, who had merged with the lightning bolt, turned pale. He never thought that Chu Hen's strength would be so strong. The T&I blade's edge could even cut through lightning. In a hurry, the second elder hurriedly retreated. However, Chu Hen's speed was clearly even faster. Both of his hands dragged the T&I blade, breaking through layer after layer of obstructions and instantly arrived in front of his opponent. The second elder, who turned pale with fright, extended both of his palms, struck out a palm energy, and retreated backwards. Bang! The palm force landed, but it only shattered the layer of purple shadow that covered the blade. Along with the rapid whirlwind, Chu Hen held the blade in a reverse grip, and with a sudden thrust, he stabbed the cold and sharp TNI blade into his opponent's chest. A series of blood splattered, and the second elder's body bowed down. Chapter 940. Gee! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing through flesh filled the air. The body of the Thunder Saint Palace's second elder bent down, making him look like a lobster. Chu Hen held his blade in a reverse grip, and with a sudden thrust, he pierced the sharp blade in his hand into his opponent's chest. In an instant, the entire Divine Thunder Arena was once again filled with astonishment. First, the fierce fourth elder was killed in a second, and now it was the powerful second elder. Chu Hen's sharpness had already pierced through everyone's pupils. Lei Jixin, who was in the center of the Divine Thunder Arena, couldn't help but clench her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. The scene in front of her was definitely not what she wanted to see. Two 7th-level Sky Profound Realm experts were defeated by Chu Hen one after another. Moreover, he was able to turn the tables while being surrounded by tens of thousands of people. This man was much more terrifying than when he was in the Xian Kshetra Sky region. The TNI blade pierced through the back of the Thunder Saint Palace's second elder like a hot knife through butter. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth, and he stared at the young face that was inches away from him in terror. His eyes, which shone with a purple light, were bewitching, and they shone with the cold glare of the god of death. Chu Hen held the hilt of his blade and pushed it forward. The powerful hidden force impacted his opponent's internal organs. The second elder let out a painful roar as the veins on his forehead bulged. However, Chu Hen was still indifferent. He didn't even blink as a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. It was as sharp as a machete. "Stop, you evil creature!" At this time, another powerful and vigorous aura followed and attacked. Heavenly Thunder Hand. Rumble, wind and thunder overlapped as the sky trembled. Tens of thousands of lightning patterns fell down and converged to form a giant hand covered in arcs of lightning. Sparks and fire rained down as if the god of thunder's giant hand was directly smashing toward Chu Hen. The power was shocking, and the powerful pressure made one's blood boil. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold. He had to admit that the Thunder Saint Palace experts were far more capable than the motley crew from the Xian Kshetra Sky region. The attacks came one after another, one killing move after another. His reaction speed was also quite fast. Immediately, Chu Hen pulled out his blade and kicked the second elder's abdomen. With the help of the recoil, he quickly retreated. The second elder, who was already injured, was hit a second time. He was in so much pain that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He was like a sandbag that was sent flying. However, the original intention of this lightning hand was to save the second elder, and not to attack Chu Hen. In the next instant, the 5 fingers of the lightning hand closed, holding the second elder in its palm with a protective stance. Oomph! With a cold snort, the heavenly thunder hand returned to where it came from. There, an old man with sharp eyes stood in the air. Although this old man had a white beard and eyebrows, he didn't look old at all. The aura he emitted was like that of a white tiger, inspiring awe. Grand Elder. The second elder called out weakly, as if he had seen his savior. This overbearing elder was none other than the person who held great power in the Thunder Saint Palace. He was the leader of all the elders, and he was also in existence at the 8th level of the Sky Profound Realm. Third elder, heal him. The Grand Elder waved his sleeve, and the heavenly thunder hand pushed the weak second elder toward a figure in the back. That person pushed out a palm energy and caught the second elder. He then retreated to a spacious rooftop and began to treat him. On the Divine Thunder platform, the people of the Thunder Saint Palace were shocked, but they didn't panic. Although Chu Hen defeated 2 powerful elders in a row and killed hundreds of people, it was nothing for the Thunder Saint Palace, which had a strong foundation. What a surprising fellow. Jiang Chen sneered. The great elder's tiger-like eyes firmly stared at Chu Hen, who was in the air in front of him. Then, a sinister sneer quietly emerged. Since you're here, why don't you take a look at our Thunder Saint Palace's Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation? Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, an earth-shattering wave of air swept across the sky. The sky lost its color, and dark clouds surged like a tide. The Thunder Saint Palace experts surrounding Chu Hen all retreated a kilometer away. Then, in the air all around them, a long line of people began to form. More than 10,000 Thunder Saint Palace disciples were scattered around Chu Hen in an orderly manner. They were orderly, and with a special pattern. They formed 4 vortexes. From afar, they looked like 4 huge coiling dragons that were distributed around Chu Hen. They were like a herd of beasts. The airflow between heaven and earth became extremely restless. It was as if Chu Hen was in the middle of a storm. He had nowhere to hide as he faced the incoming pressure. The wind that was whipped up was as sharp as a knife. A chaotic aura enveloped the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace and extended outside the sect. Heavens, heavens! That's the Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation? Outside the sect, the people who were hiding in the dark to watch the show were shocked by the spectacular scene in the sky. The people who arranged the formation surrounded each other and formed 4 huge, coiling dragons that emitted a heaven-piercing aura. Meanwhile, Chu Hen, who was in the center, seemed extremely small. He was like a small boat in the middle of a storm. Everyone secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. This aura was really terrifying. After so many years, the Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation has appeared once again. Yeah, another person sighed. The last time was more than 100 years ago, right? At that time, the Thunder Saint Palace used this Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation to destroy the Blue Sea sect, which was ranked among the top 10 forces at that time. This is a formation that can easily destroy a first-rate sect. I didn't wait here for 3 days and 3 nights in vain. Feeling the aura and rhythm of the Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation, the people who were watching the show were all shocked and amazed. While they were in awe of the Thunder Saint Palace's strength, they also secretly felt sorry for Chu Hen. It was definitely unprecedented for the Thunder Saint Palace to use the Supreme Celestial Slaughter Formation to deal with a single person. Even if Chu Hen was about to die, his name was enough to be remembered by the world. Similarly, in everyone's opinion, the moment the formation appeared, the battle was about to come to an end. Chu Hen's fate was also decided. You should be proud to die under this formation. The Grand Elder looked at Chu Hen as if he was looking at a dead man. Trial of 10,000 swords. The furious aura was like a command from the god of death. Along with the Grand Elder's words, the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace who were surrounding the void all had sharp swords flashing with lightning in their hands. In the midst of the chase, the people who were at the front all threw the lightning swords in their hands. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, 10,000 swords shot out at the same time, and the swords rained down. Spiraling sword shadows tore through the air and attacked Chu Hen, who was in the center from all 4 directions. Countless sword rays dragged out majestic waves of air in the air. The body of the sword was also surrounded by lightning. It was dazzling and released the radiance of the aura of death. Faced with such concentrated and piercingly cold attacks, Chu Hen responded to the myriad of changes by remaining unchanged. Dragging the Karma Blade, he swung it in a circle, slashing out layer after layer of surging blade waves to meet the incoming sword images. Bang! Boom! The sword light and the saber light clashed, setting off waves of heavy air and lightning. Around Chu Hen, a rain of light splattered in all directions, and the sword shadows flew together. Although the speed was extremely fast and the saber aura was unusually sharp, the sword shadows were too numerous. Wounds of varying depths appeared on Chu Hen's shoulders, arms, calves, and cheeks one after another. Even so, Chu Hen's eyes were still calm, without the slightest ripple. Outside of the killing formation, the Great Elder's cold gaze was suffused with chilliness. It seemed that Chu Hen had suffered quite a few injuries, but without exception, they were all superficial wounds. Those attacks aimed at vital points were all blocked by the opponent, second level. The Grand Elder shouted, "Buzz!" Immediately after, the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace erupted with a powerful aura. Moreover, everyone's aura was uniform, and they had all reached the same level. The space around Chu Hen trembled in a strange manner. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! The wantonly flying sword shadows actually gathered together in an orderly manner. They were arranged in an orderly manner, like a rising dragon soaring into the sky. Then they formed a dense and huge sword pillar. Tens of thousands of lightning swords were closely arranged, and there were almost no gaps between them. This was not an illusory sword aura, but a real sword. The aura it exuded was enormous and terrifying. It was comparable to the sword of a god, capable of destroying heaven and earth and tearing through the sky. It's over. Regardless of whether it was the people of the Thunder Saint Palace on the Divine Thunder platform or the spectators outside, they were all shocked by the shocking aura in front of them. The huge sword pillar flickered with dazzling lightning, and with the power to kill the heavens, it crashed down towards Chu Hen below. Ever since the supreme celestial slaying formation was created, no one had been able to survive it. Buzz, buzz! The sword pillar descended, and the divine light shone brightly in the sky, piercing everyone's eyes. Chu Hen's figure was quickly engulfed by the dazzling light. At this moment, a mysterious black shadow actually rushed out from behind Chu Hen. The black shadow raised its hands to the sky and directly supported the descending sword pillar with its palms. Bang! The deafening explosion instantly swept across the sky above the Divine Thunder platform. The impact this time caused the entire Thunder Saint Palace to tremble and sway. A strong wind blew, and the air was like a knife. The earth, mountains, and rivers were all illuminated, and the sky was filled with lightning. For example, a star exploded, a monstrous lightning soared into the sky, and a layer of violent shock wave crushed in all directions. Everyone was shaken to the point that their blood and chi churned, and disorderly sword shadows danced wantonly, covering the sky and covering the earth. Chapter 9:41. Bang! The sound was earth-shattering, and the wind was like a knife. The terrifying power of the second stage of the supreme celestial slaying formation surged between heaven and earth, and the shock wave that erupted instantly wreaked havoc on the entire area. Many high-rise buildings on the main peak of the Thunder Saint Palace collapsed one after another. He's still not dead. The great elder of the Thunder Saint Palace stared coldly at the sky. However, the scene that appeared next caused everyone inside and outside the Thunder Saint Palace to raise their eyebrows and widen their eyes once again. Amidst the dancing sword shadows, the cold young figure still stood in the sky with a calm aura. Whoosh! Everyone was astonished and shocked. How is this possible? He's actually completely fine. What kind of monster is this guy? Not only the great elder of the Thunder Saint Palace and the others, but even the spectators hiding outside the sect were astonished. The power of the sword just now, not to mention Chu Hen, who was in the 7th stage of the profound sky realm, even an 8th stage expert would not be able to withstand it. The supreme celestial slaying formation was a terrifying formation that could destroy a first-rate force in an instant. However, the truth was right in front of them, and they had no choice but to believe it. Dust filled the sky, and the wind and clouds swayed. There were only some slight scratches on Chu Hen's body from the dense rain of swords just now, and other than that, there were no other injuries. Everyone was shocked and bewildered. What exactly happened just now? On the stone throne in the center of the Divine Thunder platform, Palace Master Leja narrowed his eyes slightly, and a lot of interest surged between his brows. Just now, he had clearly seen that in the moment of imminent peril, a mysterious black figure had blocked in front of Chu Hen and blocked that life-threatening strike for him. With Leja's eyesight, it was not difficult to see that the black shadow was not a martial arts secret skill or a protective treasure, but more like a kind of bloodline power. a bloodline power that could block the power of the supreme celestial slaying formation. Leija's interest in Chu Hen grew stronger. There were simply too many secrets on this kid. It was impossible for an ordinary person to have so many trump cards and secrets. This is really getting more and more interesting. Leija nodded slightly, and his voice revealed a bit of soul-piercing coldness. The so-called Thunder Saint Palace only has this much ability? Chu Hen stood in the void, and there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. The first elder's face darkened. He had to admit that this was an unexpected setback for him and the Thunder Saint Palace. It's not good to be happy too early. Immortal Slaying Formation, Level 3. Rumble, a heavy voice spread out. Wind and thunder moved at the same time. The people arranging the array immediately changed the form of the array. One by one, the swift and fierce figures lined up from the bottom to the top, instantly transforming from the coiling dragon shape into a pyramid. 4 pyramids formed by the crowd stood in the 4 directions of Chu Hen. They were like 4 fortresses that reached the heavens. Thunder clouds rolled in the 9 heavens, and one after another, majestic lightning pillars flickered in the layers of clouds. Buzz. Everyone was facing Chu Hen, who was in the center. Every single one of them exuded a thick and violent aura. This aura seemed to come from thousands of ferocious beasts. The 4 pyramids formed by the experts of the Thunder Saint Palace were very oppressive. No matter which level they were at, there were people facing Chu Hen, and there were no blind spots at all. Thunder Beast Assault. The first elder shouted, and a fierce aura surged out like a tiger, like a king of beasts commanding. In an instant, the giant pyramids around Chu Hen began to separate from the center. The experts of the Thunder Saint Palace were like a swarm of bees leaving their nest, and layer by layer, they aggressively charged toward Chu Hen. Zap zap. As they moved, all the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace released bolts of violent lightning energy. The lightning energy quickly revolved around their bodies, intertwined, and instantly transformed into the image of a ferocious bull. Rumble. A momentum that could topple mountains and overturn the seas rose into the sky. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping at the same time. The mighty sound was like 10,000 cowhide drums being beaten at the same time. All the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace who were attacking Chu Hen had transformed into raging lightning bulls, covering the sky and shaking the earth. At this moment, even the sky was trembling. The airflow between heaven and earth became extremely chaotic. Each of the raging lightning bulls exuded the power to break through thousands of kilograms, leaving behind dazzling arcs of lightning in the sky. Wherever they went, the space would tremble from all directions. The densely packed lightning shadows all surged toward Chu Hen. Chu Hen, who was in the center, was about to face the unprecedented impact of the raging tide. There was also nowhere to hide. It's so King spectacular. With this kind of impact, any sect would be instantly flattened. Chu Hen should be done for this time. The raging lightning bull tide above the Thunder Saint Palace caused the spectators outside the sect to tremble in fear. At this moment, they no longer doubted the rumor that the supreme celestial murdering formation could easily flatten a first-rate sect. At this moment, a ball of dazzling starlight appeared in the palm of Chu Hen's left hand. Chu Hen raised one hand to the sky, and a spiral of silver light spun rapidly. Vigorous star energy surged out and gathered in the palm of his hand to compress. In the blink of an eye, an extremely dense ball of energy appeared above Chu Hen's head. As the ball of energy continued to expand, the airflow between heaven and earth was also stirred. In the blink of an eye, with Chu Hen as the center, a powerful whirlwind that spun rapidly was quietly formed. However, at the same time, the raging lightning bulls formed by the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace from all directions also charged forward. A terrifying aura surged forth like a tidal wave. Just as Chu Hen was about to be engulfed by this ferocious energy, his eyes suddenly shone with a purple light. 5-star demon eyes, silent burial. Storm. An invisible rhythm swept out from the demon eyes. buzz, the space violently trembled. With Chu Hen as the center, a demonic flame storm suddenly rose between the heavens and the earth. The spectacular purple flame tornado stirred the heavens and the earth, just like a sandstorm rising in a desert. What's that? Everyone inside and outside the Thunder Saint Palace was shocked. This was especially so for Lei Jixin and Lei Xiaolan. When they were in the Xian Kshetra sky region, they had personally witnessed this terrifying flame tornado instantly burning hundreds of people into ashes. Before everyone could figure out Chu Hen's intentions, the area covered by the demonic flame storm suddenly increased by several times. The expression of the Thunder Saint Palace's Grand Elder changed abruptly, as if he suddenly understood something. He hurriedly shouted, "Retreat, retreat," along with his hurried voice. The huge vortex formed by the demonic flame storm and the Merak annihilation overlapped and reached an extremely shocking value. Bang. A loud explosion resounded. It was as if a star had exploded, and an earth-shattering storm swept across the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. The purple flame and the silver starlight merged. The power of the seven stars and the evil flame's double cyclone was like a blooming nebula whirlpool. Wherever it went, it shattered everything. Bang, bang, bang. The energy storm that swept across heaven and earth crushed the dense crowd that was charging over. The disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace were directly crushed along with the bull silhouettes around them. The demonic flame storm was already domineering, and with the help of the vortex and the impact of the seven-star energy, it was like a life-reaping hellfire. This was a sublimation of wind and fire. The rapidly rotating airflow could increase the power of the demonic flame by several times. To the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace, this was like a feast of destruction. For a time, miserable screams rang out, and the sea of flames dyed the sky purple. The disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace could not dodge in time, and they were swallowed by the purple storm one after another. Layer after layer of shock waves swept out, and everyone was turned into ashes one after another. The densely packed crowd caused the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace to suffer heavy casualties in a short period of time. The supreme celestial murdering formation was defeated. Chapter 942. Boom. Bang. The combination of wind and fire brought about a massacre that swept across the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. The terrifying purple tornado was like a nebula vortex that could destroy everything. The demonic flames were mixed with the power of the seven stars. Wherever it passed, the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace were directly crushed into ashes and dust. Chaotic screams filled the air, and the barbaric lightning bolts that surged like a tide were smashed into pieces one after another. The concentration of the crowd and the sheer number of them left them with no time to escape or retreat. From afar, the tens of thousands of Thunder Saint Palace's disciples were like moths flying into a flame. They did not even have time to react before they were swept into the whirlpool. The purple demonic flame covered the sky and covered the earth as it burned the supreme, celestial slaughtering formation. In just a blink of an eye, more than 2,000 people had died on the spot, and there were countless injured. Oh my God, am I under an illusion? Outside the Thunder Saint Palace, the spectators who were hiding in the dark watched the spectacular scene in the sky above the divine thunder platform from afar. The purple light that dyed the sky was like a majestic cloud of fire. Although they were far away, everyone could still feel the piercingly cold and powerful waves of air. This was the Thunder Saint Palace, a powerful formation that could destroy a sect. At that moment, it was forcefully destroyed by Chu Hen's hands. Everyone's eyes were trembling with unease. Only when they saw it with their own eyes did they truly understand how terrifying Chu Hen was. The sky above the divine thunder platform was in chaos. The flaming storms spread wantonly, causing everyone to flee in all directions. The Grand Elder was enraged. His eyes were dark, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. "Bastard, you really deserve to die." The Grand Elder was furious. His anger soared to the sky, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. A mountainous aura surged out of him. Without saying a word, he charged toward Chu Hen, leaving a trail of dazzling lightning in the air. He had never been so furious before. If it was said that he wanted to use the supreme, celestial murdering formation to prove the power of the Thunder Saint Palace and make Chu Hen fall into despair. Therefore, Chu Hen's counterattack this time was like a slap to his opponent's face with the sole of a muddy shoe. Even for the powerful Thunder Saint Palace, having thousands of elite disciples killed in one go was a loss that could not be ignored. At that moment, the Great Elder only had one thought in his mind, and that was to kill this abominable bastard as soon as possible to vent the hatred in his heart. Roar! At this moment, a deafening tiger roar reverberated in the sky. The invisible sound wave penetrated into the depths of one's soul, causing one's internal organs to tremble. A dense pressure rushed towards the Great Elder, only to see a white, saber-toothed giant tiger rushing out from the chaotic dancing flames. The gigantic beast was ferocious and powerful. The Great Elder's eyes were scarlet red, his gaze ruthless. Scram, Heavenly Thunderbringer! With that, he stretched out his palm towards the sky and spread open his fingers. Clang! The lightning in the sky surged, followed by a terrifying bolt of lightning that was hundreds of meters long descending from the sky, bringing with it a dense destructive aura as it struck towards the white saber-toothed giant tiger. The lightning illuminated the sky like a divine sword. Boom! The heavenly thunder that had the power to destroy everything struck the middle of the saber-toothed giant tiger's body, directly splitting it in two. But at the same time that the saber-toothed tiger was split into two, it suddenly opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the heavens and the earth, whistling through the mountains and rivers. A holy blade that flickered with a white flowing shadow actually flew out explosively from its mouth. Whoosh! The heavenly karma saber was surrounded by holy light, tearing through the air as fast as an aurora. In the process of moving, the saber rapidly elongated, the blade turning into a sharp spear tip, and the thin blade immediately became the body of the spear connected by the dragon's spine. Buzz, buzz, spirals of air gathered at the tip of the spear tip, spinning rapidly, and a ferocious phantom of an ancient lizard dragon with a pair of wings suddenly appeared in front of the Great Elder. Damn it! The Great Elder of Thunder Saint Palace's expression changed dramatically, and his heart was filled with horror. The white saber-toothed tiger, just now, was just a feint. This was the real attack that would take his life. Careless. Really careless. But this carelessness was enough to take his life? Hiss. Bright red blood splattered. As if from hell, the dripping god spear turned into a beam of light and pierced through the Great Elder's throat. His eyes were wide open, and fear filled his entire twisted old face. The anger just now had made him lose his mind. A moment of impulsiveness in exchange for death. A dazzling bloody hole slowly opened up in his neck, like a blooming flower. In an instant, the entire Thunder Saint Palace trembled in shock and anger. The second elder on the high sky platform, the third elder who was healing the former, Lei Jixin, Lei Xiaolan, and everyone else inside and outside the sect were terrified out of their wits. Unbelievable. A series of blood splattered from the sky, and the Great Elder of Thunder Saint Palace fell powerlessly from the void with his eyes wide open, full of resentment and unwillingness. His death finally directly angered Palace Master Leisha. What a pity! Leisha fiercely stood up from his stone chair, and his surging true essence pierced through the vault of heaven and went straight up to the Milky Way. The purple flames and turbulent cyclones that shrouded the divine thunder platform seemed to be split apart by an invisible giant blade. The mighty waves of light were all split apart to both sides. In the void, the young figure shrouded in purple light stood in the air, looking down at Leisha. But a heavy, invisible pressure spread in the air. Leisha clenched his fists, his clothes fluttering in the wind, and the light in his eyes was like the sharp sword of death. You have already lost the right to die. From now on, you will forever be accompanied by pain in my Thunder Saint Palace's prison. Your life will be like hell, a life worse than death. This was the anger of a king. From beginning to end, no one dared to kill wantonly in the Thunder Saint Palace. Especially in front of him, Leisha. 2 elders and thousands of disciples died in a row, and Leisha could no longer let Chu Hen continue. Even though he was the high and mighty master of the Thunder Saint Palace, he had to personally end everything. Die. Rumble, an aura that could shake mountains and rivers, surged into the sky, and Leisha's body was immediately covered with interweaving lightning nets. In the next moment, a huge lightning net appeared in the space below Chu Hen. Light and shadow interweaved, lightning flashed, and the gorgeous lightning net was like a talisman array. Then the space twisted uneasily, and the wind blew violently. A huge hand suddenly stretched out from the lightning net. The hand, condensed from the power of lightning, was far from what the great elder had displayed before. Chapter 943. You've already lost the right to die. From now on, you'll spend the rest of your life crying in the prison of my Thunder Saint Palace. Your life will be like an endless purgatory, a life worse than death. Hum! The heavens and earth shook, and a gust of wind blew. Just as Leisha's voice faded, lightning flashed between the heaven and earth. Holy splendor soared into the sky, and along with an extremely chaotic aura, a huge hand made of lightning rose from the sky. Like a demon god, it smashed towards Chu Hen in the sky above. The Thunder Saint Palace master was finally angry. Even though Leisha had not planned to make a move from the beginning, he only needed to watch from the sidelines with a supreme status. But what was unexpected was that this young man, who was only in his 20s, had killed 2 in a row, severely injured a high-level elder, and killed thousands of disciples in front of Leisha. Unforgivable, killing intent filled the sky, and a majestic, giant hand of lightning whistled through the air, smashing into Chu Hen's body with the power to destroy mountains. Boom! The sky trembled incessantly, and the dazzling lightning patterns were like an endless rain of fireworks. The power of Leisha's attack was especially terrifying, and the impact it set off all rushed towards Chu Hen. The wild lightning flashed in the sky, and the sound was deafening, causing people's blood to boil. Hiss. As expected of the palace master, this power is really terrifying. Many of the spectators outside the sect secretly gasped, and their faces revealed fear and respect. This was a top-notch expert in the victorious Dawn Prefecture. If Palace Master Leisha had made a move earlier, the Thunder Saint Palace wouldn't have lost so many people. Everyone knows how to say this kind of thing. Don't tell me you knew this would happen from the beginning? No, I thought I wouldn't even need to use the Supreme Celestial Extermination Formation to finish off Chu Hen. Everyone thought so, but now I'm sure. The voice suddenly stopped, and the expression of the person who spoke suddenly changed. What's going on? The others were also staring at the sky above the divine thunder platform. They saw that Chu Hen had actually safely retreated from the violent and chaotic lightning patterns. There was not the slightest fluctuation of emotion on his calm face, and the aura emitted from his body was still as sharp as a cold frost blade. Nothing happened to him. Lei Jixin, Lei Xiaolan, the second elder, and the other members of the Thunder Saint Palace all shuddered. Leisha's expression also darkened, and his gaze fell on Chu Hen's left hand. The other party's left arm was encircled by halos of flowing starlight. The interweaving light and shadow gathered at the center of his palm, forming a strange 7-star pattern. Humph, so that's how it is. The killing intent in Lei Zhe's eyes intensified. However, in front of this revered figure, Chu Hen's brows actually floated with a hint of frivolity and disdain. Unfortunately, I don't see you as an opponent, he spoke in a calm voice. These simple words were like a resounding slap to the face of Leisha, as well as everyone in the Thunder Saint Palace. I don't see you as an opponent. This sentence was said by a junior to Leisha. The seemingly calm tone was like a sharp knife that pierced straight into the soul and heart of everyone present. Disdain. True disdain, not even a hint of provocation. This was the most arrogant form of disregard. And the person Chu Hen disregarded was the existence that everyone in the prefecture region feared. Leisha. Then, Chu Hen's gaze swept directly towards Lei Jixin, who was on the other side, with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Eldest Miss Lei, it's time for me to fulfill my promise. Promise? What promise? Everyone was confused, but Lei Jixin's body could not help but tremble, and an inexplicable fear filled her entire face. Chu Hen had indeed given her a promise, and it was also the only promise. That was the scene that Chu Hen had presented to her with an illusion in the Xian Kshetra sky region. No, no. Lei Jixin trembled, and her face was as pale as a sheet. Before Lei Zhe could react, she saw Chu Hen slowly open his arms in the void, and at the same time, his body rose to a higher area at a gentle and light speed. Buzz, buzz. A strange rhythm that had never been seen before spread between the heavens and the earth. With Chu Hen as the center, the airflow of heaven and earth revolved around him. Above the dark sky, rays of light pierced through the thick clouds like divine swords, and then 7 incomparably gorgeous stars appeared. The appearance of the 7 stars in the daytime caused everyone present to reveal a look of deep astonishment. That's 7 stars? How can this be? Buzz, buzz. Extremely uneasy trembling covered the sky and covered the earth. Standing proudly in the sky, Chu Hen's body released a brilliance that was like a bright moon. In particular, the 7 stars in his palm were even more dazzling, as bright as crystal, as if he could control the heavens. Feeling Chu Hen's summon, the 9 heavens stirred up a turbulence that swept away the clouds, and the 7 stars that appeared in the sky also burst out with the light of the sun. Thick heavenly might filled the sky and covered the earth. The size of the 7 stars became larger and larger, as if there was a mountain above their heads, and there was an indescribable pressure. No one had ever felt that the stars were so close to them, as if they could reach out and touch them. With the 7 stars gathered, Chu Hen, who was shrouded in starlight and holy radiance, looked like a god. At this moment, a trace of shock finally appeared on Lei Zhe's face, and this trace of shock continued to grow with the surging pressure. Lei Jixin became more and more afraid, and she shouted in a trembling voice, "Stop! Stop!" The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled into a mocking smile. At this point, how could he stop? Who could understand the pain of Chu Hen's continuous life and death pursuit? Now, it's up to you to bear my hatred and anger. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, an extraordinary and earth-shattering force erupted from Chu Hen's body, and a powerful cyclone spread out in the sky. The 7 stars in the 9 heavens shone brightly. 7 stars gather. Buzz. In an instant, 7 gigantic pillars of light that emitted an endless and terrifying aura descended from the sky. They were like divine punishment that could destroy the world. They fell directly towards the majestic mountain gate below. The 9 heavens stars fall, sweeping the 8 desolate calamity. The expressions of everyone in the Thunder Saint Palace changed drastically. These 7 giant pillars of light were like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, full of the aura of destruction. Lei Zhe was also shocked and angry. The terrifying force emitted by these 7 pillars of light made even him tremble. Retreat, retreat. Other than this, Lei Zhe really did not know what order to give. But at this moment, the people of the Thunder Saint Palace were so densely gathered on the main peak. Where should they retreat to? How could they have the time to retreat? Boom, bang. Almost at the same time, the 7 shocking pillars that originated from the power of the 7 stars all crashed into the Thunder Saint Palace. It was like a divine punishment that could destroy the world, sweeping through everything. At this moment, heaven and earth seemed to have fallen into a great calamity. Violent and whistling like a hurricane, waves after waves of terrifying shockwaves were like torrents and tsunamis that had broken through a dam, and they swept out in all directions. The divine lightning platform instantly collapsed, and the huge square shattered inch by inch, layer by layer. Thousands of broken stones and bricks filled the sky. Then, like a volcanic eruption, the entire main peak collapsed with a loud bang. A series of shrill screams sounded like Azura's purgatory, and batch after batch of Thunder Saint Palace disciples were turned into dust by this deadly shockwave. One luxurious building after another was uprooted. In an instant, the mountain gate of the Thunder Saint Palace was destroyed in a carpet attack. 7 giant pillars of light, 7 terrifying forces, 7 incomparably huge sinkholes covered the inside and outside of the Thunder Saint Palace, rapidly expanding in all directions. Countless Thunder Saint Palace disciples were directly smashed into pieces. The second elder, who had previously survived Chu Hen, was still recovering from his injuries. In endless fear, the high platform under his feet was directly smashed into pieces. No. Chapter 944. Boom! Bang! Heaven and earth shook, mountains and rivers cracked, the earth exploded, and the stars swept across the land. The terrifying carpet-like shockwave swept across the various mountain peaks of the Thunder Saint Palace and spread throughout the entire sect. The power of the 7 stars was gathered. 7 star pearls, 7 star souls, all in Chu Hen's hands. The combined attack of the 7 complete star soul pearls could draw the power of the 9 heaven stars, and the power was comparable to that of a divine weapon. Bang! The earth crumbled layer by layer, and the mountains were flattened. The majestic buildings were crushed like tofu under the impact of the shockwave, unable to withstand a single blow. Countless disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace were turned into dust, and many powerful elders were crushed into dregs. The soil and gravel that had been turned over inch by inch, along with the powerful and piercingly cold shockwaves, directly gushed out of the sect. Bang, bang, bang. Like a raging hurricane, it rushed through the trees and bushes outside the mountain gate. Those busybodies who were hiding in the dark were all caught off guard. One by one, their silhouettes were sent flying backward. There were even a few people who were close to the scene who were shaken to the point that their internal chi churned and they spat out blood. Boom! At this moment, the inside and outside of the Thunder Saint Palace was in chaos. Everyone who was secretly watching had a look of shock and fear on their faces. Hiss! What a terrifying power! Who the hell is this guy? This is King, turning the sky upside down. Every pair of trembling pupils revealed only fear towards Chu Hen. The young figure in the sky in front of them was simply like a god of death that could not be crossed and angered. Just when the world thought that things were about to end, Chu Hen created shocking miracles time and time again. The Thunder Saint Palace was in chaos. In merely an instant, this place that was filled with spiritual energy and was like a paradise for immortals had changed beyond recognition, and it was filled with desolation. 7 huge craters with a diameter of more than 10,000 feet appeared in the sect. Refurbished soil was everywhere, and broken corpses littered the ground. What was once a luxurious building was now nothing but countless ruins. More than half of the Thunder Saint Palace, which had a long history, was forcibly destroyed. The main peak was completely flattened. At a glance, it was almost impossible to find any intact mountain peaks. Even the walls of the jade towers on the remote mountain peaks in the back of the mountain were full of cracks and crevices. As for the people of the Thunder Saint Palace, they suffered even more. Several high-level elders were directly blasted into pieces, let alone those disciples with relatively low cultivations. It would be fine if they were scattered. However, more than 80% of the Thunder Saint Palace's experts were gathered at the Divine Thunder Arena on the main peak today. Under such circumstances, the number of casualties could be counted in the tens of thousands. Wails, roars, and roars of hatred were endless. On the destroyed Divine Thunder platform, only half of the stone chair remained in the pile of rubble. Beside the stone chair, Leisha was in a sorry state. His vicious eyes were filled with resentment and endless anger. His face was pale, and he clutched his chest with one hand. A trace of blood seemed to flow from the corner of his mouth. Even he found it difficult to withstand the impact of the complete 7-star Soul Pearl's power. Not far behind Leisha Sheen was as frightened as a cicada in winter. As most of the shock wave was blocked by Leisha Sheen was protected, and there were no obvious injuries on her body. However, his mental defenses had already collapsed. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses were everywhere. Tens of thousands of disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace were buried here in an instant. This was revenge from that man. The nightmare she saw in the Xian Kshetra sky region had become reality. The scene she saw in the illusion had come true. Lei Jixin sat on the ground powerlessly. Her beautiful face had lost its color. In front of Chu Hen, she lowered her head again. His proud and aloof dignity was trampled to the point that it was worthless. She regretted it. She really regretted it. If she could do it all over again, she would not provoke this terrifying man. Even if Chu Hen disappeared in front of her forever, it would be a nightmare that she could not get rid of. You really deserve to die 1,000,000 times. Leija's eyes flashed with endless hatred and murderous intent. The sky was filled with dust and frost. The starlight above the ninth heaven gradually faded away, but the light on Chu Hen's body was still so beautiful that it made people feel dazzled. He looked down at Leija indifferently. "I'm afraid you can't kill me." Leija gritted his teeth and clenched his fists. As a palace master, he was used to seeing many big scenes. At this moment, his edge was not even 1/10 of Chu Hen's. Chu Hen's eyes swept across the survivors who were gradually calming down. Maybe it's time to put a full stop? Full stop? His frivolous tone was like a sharp sword, causing the hearts of the people below to tremble. Leija's eyes also shrank. Hua! A circle of flowing light quietly rippled in front of Chu Hen. Then, a scroll that emitted a simple and unadorned aura appeared in his hand. Revolving beast picture. Leija's face changed again. In an instant, the revolving beast picture spread out between Chu Hen's hands like a scroll, and all kinds of demonic beast patterns and runes flashed brightly. Vigorous true inner force flowed into it. The scroll immediately shone with extraordinary splendor, releasing a dazzling divine radiance like that of the sun. The dazzling light pierced the sky, and the sky was once again in turmoil. Roar! Roar! Boundless ferocious might crushed down, and it was like a violent storm that shook the heavens. Within the ear-piercing beam of light, the roars of various demonic beasts could be heard one after another. The heavens and the earth spun. Accompanied by the deafening sound of thunder, an incomparably violent aura swept out in all directions. Bang! Boom! Gigantic figures trampled on the ruins below, sending rocks flying everywhere. The roars of demonic beasts pierced the eardrums of everyone present. The sky was filled with black shadows, and hundreds of demonic beasts suddenly appeared in the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. Screech! The black cloud condor's aura was shocking. Like a flowing light blade, it spread its huge wings and crossed thousands of meters. Wherever it went, the disciples of the Thunder Saint Palace were chopped into pieces. Roar! The heavy rock wild bear's violent attack was like a mountain, and its roar shook the sky. A stomp could split mountains and rivers. Having just experienced the destructive impact of the 7 terrifying star forces, before they had time to stabilize their trembling minds, the siege of the monster beasts once again pushed them into the storm. Even though the Thunder Saint Palace had suffered heavy losses, the number of people was far greater than the number of demonic beasts. But even so, the tired people of the Thunder Saint Palace were dispirited, and they could not withstand the fierce attack of the powerful demonic beasts. The massacre began again. The deaths continued. Boom! But at this moment, the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace suddenly became turbulent and thunder rumbled. A dangerous aura quietly awakened and spread in this direction. With the appearance of this aura, even high-level heavenly beasts like the black cloud condor and the heavy rock wild bear could not help but reveal expressions of fear. Finally, traces of seriousness surfaced on Chu Hen's indifferent face. Outside the sect, those busybodies in the distance all surged with heartfelt reverence and trembled. As expected, that person is finally going to make a move. That person hasn't shown his face for hundreds of years. Indeed, but everyone knows that he is the true ruler of the Thunder Saint Palace. Respect and awe came from the bottom of their hearts. Everyone looked at the chaotic thunderclouds from afar, as if they were waiting for the arrival of a god. The true person with the highest authority, the holy master of the Thunder Saint Palace. Chapter 945. He was the person who held the highest authority. He was a transcendent being above the profound heaven realm. He would exist for eternity and be indestructible. Buzz, buzz. There seemed to be a long and continuous aura surging between heaven and earth. Wild thunderclouds covered the sky and covered the earth, filling the mountains and rivers. Feeling the mysterious and powerful aura that surged over like a tide, everyone in and out of the Thunder Saint Palace couldn't help but feel respect from the bottom of their hearts. The Holy Lord of the Thunder Saint Palace, an ancient eternity stage being, Lei Aoqiong. The powerful aura that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas continued to attack. The demonic beasts that were summoned all roared at the sky and let out uneasy roars. Rumble. Then, under the gazes of countless people filled with awe and shock, the space above the Thunder Saint Palace suddenly twisted into a vortex. The clouds in the sky rolled violently, and countless lightning arcs flashed in the twisted space. Then, a figure that seemed like an emperor and exuded a supreme aura appeared in the sky. Whoosh. A piercingly cold wind swept past, emitting a heavy and cold aura. In an instant, everything in the world was overshadowed. Only the two figures facing each other in the sky were dazzling and dazzling. Everyone in the Thunder Saint Palace, including Palace Master Leisha, became the background. The gigantic demonic beasts were also reduced to a background. It was as if only Chu Hin and Lei Aoqiong were left in the scene. It was as if the stars were competing with the moon. The two of them looked at each other from afar. The airflow between them was as strong as a blade. Leisha clenched his fists and called out respectfully, "Holy, holy Lord!" If Leisha was the king before, then he was now the subject. The eyes of all the other members of the Thunder Saint Palace lit up as well. As long as this person was here, the Thunder Saint Palace would never perish. It seems like no one has dared to provoke the Thunder Saint Palace for almost 1,000 years. Lei Aoqiong lifted his gaze slightly and looked down at the young figure in front of him in a condescending manner. Although Lei Aoqiong had existed for a long time, he only looked like he was in his 30s or 40s. He looked even younger than Leisha. However, there was a sense of depth in his eyes, as if he had experienced the vicissitudes of time. An ancient eternity stage powerhouse. He was in existence at the top of the pyramid in the Dongxing Prefecture. As far as the eye could see, there were only 3 people in the entire province who had reached this level. These 3 people were none other than the Thousand World sect leader, the palace leader of Jihua Palace, and the sacred leader of Thunder Saint Palace. The passing of time was everlasting. Looking at the Thunder Saint Palace that had been razed to the ground was littered with corpses, and the Thunder Saint Palace was in complete chaos. No matter how arrogant Lei Aoqiong was, his eyes still flashed with an unconcealable killing intent as he looked at the young man who was only in his 20s. "Not bad, thanks to you. I almost forgot what anger feels like. Today, I remember it again." His calm and indifferent tone caused people's hearts to palpitate. Roar! The demonic beast behind Chu Hin let out a low growl. This was a sign of nervousness after sensing danger. This was the disdain of an emperor. He didn't waste any words, because no matter what he said, it wouldn't change Lei Aoqiong's determination to kill Chu Hin. Lei Aoqiong poured his life's blood, sweat, and tears into making the Thunder Saint Palace so powerful. He never thought that it would be destroyed by a mere Chu Hin. More than half of the sect was destroyed, the elders were killed, and the blood of thousands of disciples was splattered on the divine thunder stage. The Thunder Saint Palace probably wouldn't recover from the damage it suffered today, even after the opening of the ancient desolate heaven region. If it wasn't for Chu Hin, the Thunder Saint Palace would surpass the Thousand World sect and Jihua Palace to become the top of the top 10 forces. But now, the realization of that goal would be far away in the indefinite future. Lei Aoqiong's calm expression hid his endless killing intent towards Chu Hin. However, The state that Chu Hen displayed was a lot calmer than what everyone had expected. On his handsome face that contained traces of bewitchment, there was not the slightest trace of fear. This guy isn't afraid at all. Does he not know how terrifying Lei Aoqiong is? Everyone inside and outside the Thunder Saint Palace was confused. He still hasn't figured out who the person standing in front of him is? But there's no one in the Eastern Victory State who doesn't know about this person from the Thunder Saint Palace. Or rather, this guy knew all this, but he still dared to attack the Thunder Saint Palace. The more they thought about it, the more horrified they became. In an instant, everyone's gaze that looked at Chu Hen was filled with an indescribable disbelief. From the very beginning, everyone believed that it was impossible for Chu Hen to leave the Thunder Saint Palace alive. Even if he used the strength of 7 stars to destroy such a huge sect to such an extent, Chu Hen's fate would not change. The reason was very simple. It was because of Lei Aoqiong. But now, Chu Hen was becoming more and more unfathomable. He was still so calm when facing Lei Aoqiong. Did he have a trump card that he hadn't used yet? A gust of cold wind blew a few leaves that were mixed with sand. "Make your move," Chu Hen said calmly. At that moment, it was as if time had stopped. The silhouettes of the 2 people in the sky became especially sharp. A frivolous smile appeared on Lei Aoqiong's face. "Very good. You've already lost the chance to say your last words." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, a violent cyclone wave swept out between heaven and earth. Along with the rolling tribulation clouds in the sky, the silver light illuminated the blue dome of heaven. A huge palm that covered the sky split apart the layers of clouds, descending from the sky like the divine hand of a Buddha. It smashed down towards Chu Hen. The space trembled uneasily as a terrifying pressure as a mountain pressed down. The huge palm shadow covered the sky and the earth. One could even see the palm print on it clearly. A casual attack from an ancient eternity realm cultivator had the power to destroy any profound heaven realm wuxio. The majestic pressure was hard to shake. Buzz! Chu Hen focused his fingers. With a loud hum, the blue sky sword appeared in front of his fingertips. Chu Hen wielded his sword in the air, and a powerful sword aura burst forth. The blue Ran sword immediately transformed into countless sword shadows that soared into the sky and gathered into a vigorous sword river, which attacked the thunderous palm that was pressing down on him. Bang, bang, bang. The peerlessly powerful sword shadows were extremely penetrative, but in the face of this huge palm, they were like embroidery needles striking a wall, and were continuously shattered into light and shadow. What shocking power! The spectators in the surrounding area were shocked. Don't you know what to say? The ancient eternity realm true inner force is on a completely different level from the profound heaven realm. Moreover, Lei Aoqiong is the one who can use the sacred body of thunder to its fullest potential. Today's trip was really worth it. I got to see the holy leader of Thunder Saint Palace with my own eyes. Everyone's words were filled with respect and admiration for Lei Aoqiong. It was fine if he didn't make a move, but once he did, the difference between the 2 of them was obvious. Chu Hen was definitely going to die. Chapter 946. Bang, bang, bang. Countless fierce sword images that shot up vertically converged into a powerful grand Tao of the Sword River. However, when they collided with the enormous palm that smashed down towards them, they were like embroidery needles that had collided with an iron wall, and they were completely shattered into pieces. The moment they made a move, the difference between the profound heavens realm and the ancient eternity realm was obvious. In the eyes of the crowd, Chu Hen was definitely going to die today. Powerful waves of air covered the sky and swept out in all directions. The giant palm that blotted out the sky and the sun slammed down on Chu Hen's head in an unshakable manner. Whoosh! However, at this moment, Chu Hen's figure moved. He instantly transformed into a peerless humanoid sword chi that soared into the sky. Surrounded by tens of thousands of sword shadows, he crashed into the center of the giant palm. Bang! A violent tremor swept through the sky. In an instant, a solid beam of light, like the divine light of dawn, penetrated the giant palm and set off thunder in all directions. A hint of surprise and coldness flashed in the eyes of holy leader Lei Aoqiong. Oomph. So it's that brat Su Qing's successor. If I had known this day would come, I would have destroyed Mount Kunliu back then. Hearing Lei Aoqiong's words, the crowd was stunned. Who's Su Qing? You don't even know that? How ignorant. This person is the first sect leader of Mount Kunliu. He's also the genius who created the ultimate technique, the single sword flying celestial technique. However, the person who truly brought the single sword flying celestial technique to great heights is Gong Yangyu. Strictly speaking, Gong Yangyu could be considered the soul of Mount Kunliu. Don't just go with the flow. Gong Yangyu has been missing for more than 20 years. We don't even know if he's dead or alive. If he's really capable, why would he just watch as his disciple falls to such a state? That's true. I think Gong Yangyu doesn't even have the guts to collect Chu Hen's corpse. Boom! Chu Hen pierced through the huge hand with a force that could break the heavens. A piercingly cold sword force followed and filled the sky. Holding the sword in one hand, Chu Hen spread wild black lightning. It was like vines of death that came from hell as it wrapped around the sword. Immediately after, Chu Hen dragged the sword and moved. A series of afterimages appeared in the sky as he arrived in front of Lei Aoqiong like a ghost. His sword went straight for the center of Lei Aoqiong's brows. Lei Aoqiong's eyes were filled with the disdain of a colossus towards an ant. He couldn't remember the last time someone had attacked him. A strand of gorgeous lightning markings erupted from his body, and then silver arcs of light flashed in his eyes. A solid ball of lightning condensed out of thin air and blocked the tip of the blue sky sword. Bang! Upon contact, a shock wave surged, and the lightning ball instantly exploded from the center. The astonishing power was like the detonation of a small star. Lightning splashed everywhere, and the silver and black lightning clashed intensely, like white snakes and black pythons intertwining with each other. After that, Chu Hen condensed his left palm, and strands of black and white cyclones floated in the heavens and the earth. The two cyclones chased and revolved around each other as they converged into Chu Hen's palm, and then they instantly transformed into a yin and yang palm that was both hard and soft. Chu Hen struck with his palm, and the two palm forces that were like the yin and yang of Taiji flew and intertwined with each other. They directly charged through the chaotic rain of lightning and fire before launching their second attack towards Lei Aoqiong. Bang! However, this formidable palm force that was both hard and soft hadn't even been able to touch Lei Aoqiong before it was shattered by the extraordinary, imposing aura that emanated from Lei Aoqiong's body. A powerful shock wave swept towards the surroundings. Lei Aoqiong flipped his hand and flicked with the tip of his finger. A strand of sharp energy tore through the air like a shooting arrow and struck towards Chu Hen's throat. The corners of Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly. He leaned to the side, and the strand of energy brushed past his left shoulder. Hiss! There was a soft sound, and a bloody gash instantly appeared on his shoulder. Without any time to treat his wound or pause, Chu Hen exploded with a shocking speed and immediately disappeared from where he stood. In the next instant, a giant sword that was filled with flames suddenly appeared in the air behind Lei Aoqiong. The giant sword slashed through the air, and it was comparable to a divine blade that could split the heavens. However, Lei Aoqiong didn't even bother to bat an eyelid. He leaned to the side unhurriedly, and just as the giant sword was about to fall, he waved his hand. Rumble! The heavens and the earth flashed, and a pillar of lightning that was as cold as a dragon swept through the air, easily blocking the giant sword that was slashing down. Boom! Rumble! The extremely powerful forces collided, and the sound produced by the collision of all kinds of fierce true ether caused the sky to tremble. As Chu Hen and Lei Aoqiong fought, the hundreds of giant ferocious beasts also erupted into an intense battle with the people of the Thunder Saint Palace. Without a doubt, Lei Aoqiong's appearance was like a cardiac stimulant, stabilizing the minds of the people of the Thunder Saint Palace. They firmly believed that as long as Lei Aoqiong was here, there was no need to fear Chu Hen. Slaughter these evil beasts. Palace Master Leija's eyes were fierce, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. He and the other experts began to counterattack the ferocious beasts. However, there were also extremely powerful existences among the many ferocious beasts. In addition, the 7 giant pillars of light had caused great damage to the Thunder Saint Palace. As they fought, it was hard to tell which side had the upper hand. For a moment, the entire Thunder Saint Palace could be said to have fallen into chaos. The intense battle continued to unfold. Blood flew everywhere, and people were constantly torn to pieces by the sharp teeth and claws of the ferocious beasts. Giant ferocious beasts were torn to pieces by the crowd, and their flesh was torn to shreds. This trip and this scene were both incomparably magnificent, and it also caused one's heart to tremble. The spectators who were hiding outside the sect quickly retreated in order to avoid being caught in the crossfire. In the sky, the battle between Chu Hen and Lei Aoqiong could be said to be getting more and more intense. Waves of powerful aura that were stronger than the previous one bloomed in the sky. Chu Hen's figure was so fast that it was dazzling like a phantom. One sword after another, one attack after another, and one attack after another. Magnificent martial skills continuously exploded in the sky. However, Lei Aoqiong was like an unshakable mountain. Even though Chu Hen's attacks were stronger than the previous one, he could not even get close to him. On the other hand, Lei Aoqiong's seemingly careless counterattacks always left shocking wounds on Chu Hen's body. The situation would only become more and more difficult to deal with. However, Chu Hen's gaze was still as calm as before. That handsome face of his was so calm that it was somewhat abnormal. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the dark and damp mountain forest, a group of figures was moving quickly towards a certain direction. Suddenly, one of the young women amongst them stopped moving while a strand of astonishment that was difficult to add surged onto her face. "What's wrong, Nongqi?" The person in front turned around and asked. Chu Hen's aura." Everyone stopped in their tracks. "Where is he?" "In the direction of the Thunder Saint Palace." As expected, before everyone could recover from their shock, Nongqi's slightly trembling voice once again rang in everyone's ears. Such a powerful aura that person has appeared, that person." Everyone was stunned at first, and then they all revealed expressions of shock and trembling at the same time. You mean the Ancient One? The Ancient One? What?" Everyone couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Chapter 9:47. Boom! Bang! Smoke rose like a tide, and cyclones soared into the sky. The area of the intense battle continued to expand in the Thunder Saint Palace. The beasts were enraged, and the humans counterattacked. The spectacular scenes caused chaos to continue. Experts from the Thunder Saint Palace were constantly torn apart by the sharp claws and teeth of the demonic beasts. At the same time, the demonic beasts let out miserable cries before they died for being surrounded and killed by the crowd. Scarlet blood rained down, and all sorts of dazzling martial skills and secret techniques interweaved and collided, setting off waves after waves of shocking waves. In the center of the ruined divine thunder platform, Lei Jixin clenched her fists and stared at the 2 imposing figures in the sky above. To her, the scene in front of her was like a dream. Clearly, during their first conflict, Chu Hen was still being chased by her to the point that he had to flee in all directions. But now his opponent had already changed to the strongest person in the Thunder Saint Palace. Unease, palpitations. Even though Lei Aoqiong was right in front of her, Lei Jixin still found it hard to calm down. "You're afraid, right?" A weak voice came from behind her. Lei Jixin was shocked. She turned around and saw that Lei Xiaolan was covered in dust and bruises. She looked like she had just crawled out of a pile of rubble. "Xiaolan, you?" Lei Jixin was startled for a moment, but she quickly reacted. The terrifying impact caused by the 7 giant light pillars must have affected the other party. And because Lei Jixin was standing behind Palace Master Leija, she was safe and sound. Lei Xiaolan's lips curled into a mocking smile. Looks like you've forgotten about my existence. I'm sorry, I should be lying in the rubble, closing my eyes, and taking my last breath. Xiaolan, what are you talking about? Lei Jixin felt very strange when she heard the other party's tone. The clever and obedient Lei Xiaolan would never say such things to her. But now, her words were full of sarcasm. Nothing. Lei Xiaolan turned her face away, and her eyes were a little red. Then, she looked at Lei Jixin again and said, "The Thunder Saint Palace is finished." Every word was sharp and ear-piercing. Lei Jixin's expression changed, and she hurriedly shook her head. "No, with sacred Lord Xiong here, there's no way we'll lose." But no matter how determined Lei Jixin was, Lei Xiaolan's eyes were still as cold as ashes. Her lips moved slightly as she muttered to herself in a mosquito-like voice. "If only you had listened to me back then and summoned him into the Thunder Saint Palace. Why did you have to anger him? That's a demon." Bang! Lightning flashed in all directions, and electric arcs flickered. In the void sky, streaks of afterimages appeared around Lei Aoqiong. Chu Hen dragged his sword and moved. Wave after wave of powerful sword auras pressed toward Lei Aoqiong. Even though Chu Hen's sword techniques were extremely sharp, every single one of them was easily neutralized by Lei Aoqiong. Lei Aoqiong's series of powerful attacks did not leave a single mark on his opponent's body. "If this is all you've got, then it's a pity." A chilly aura surged in Lei Aoqiong's eyes. Then he clasped his hands together, and lightning flashed all over his body. Then countless bolts of lightning burst out from his body in all directions. The densely packed lightning bolts were like sharp metal wires, and they quickly spread toward the space where Chu Hen was. The range of the lightning bolts rapidly expanded, and tens of thousands of metal nets with electric patterns and silver arcs covered the sky and earth. At the same time, a joint appeared every half a meter, and each joint had sharp barbs on it. A strong aura of danger permeated the violent wind. In an instant, Chu Hen felt as if he was about to fall into the mouth of an incomparably huge man-eating flower. The countless lightning bolts covered in sharp barbs were like deadly teeth. Inescapable net. Lei Aoqiong, who was in the center of the lightning bolts, shouted coldly. His cold gaze was like a sharp sword. Swish, swish, swish. As his voice fell, the earth-shattering lightning iron wire, which was filled with thorns and barbs, immediately tightened and wrapped around Chu Hen. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold, and he continuously dodged. The sharp and rapid sound of wind breaking almost tore the space apart. Chu Hen's speed exploded to the extreme, and he was like an agile dragonfly as he continuously dodged the numerous lightning wires. The dazzling light was too much for the eyes to take in. The lightning wires constantly brushed past Chu Hen's body, and the sharp barbs on them emitted a cold light that sent chills down one's spine. Even though the lightning wires were tightening extremely quickly, Chu Hen did not panic at all. However, Chu Hen did not panic in the slightest. Every time, he would be able to find the most accurate angle to dodge. The swiftness and fierceness of his reaction really made people gasp in amazement. What a shocking speed. Indeed, my eyes are blurry. The hearts of the people watching from afar were in their throats, and they were all worried for Chu Hen. After all, at this moment, the only thing they could think of was how long Chu Hen could last against Lei Aoqiong. The omnipresent net was completely controlled by Lei Aoqiong's mental strength. Chu Hen was dodging at such a high speed, and he was depleting his energy very quickly. If his opponent's rhythm was even slightly disrupted, what awaited him would be countless lightning wires twisting him into a bloody pulp, and the sharp barbs would mercilessly tear his flesh off. Ding! Bang! Chu Hen dodged and dodged, and as he retreated, he continuously blocked with the blue sky sword. A series of silver sparks exploded around him, and his series of movements could be said to be smooth and unhurried. Lei Aoqiong could not hide the shock in his heart as he watched Chu Hen dodge the lightning nets that filled the sky. An ordinary person would not have been able to block such an attack at all. Moreover, his opponent seemed to be able to see through his thoughts, and he dodged every time just in time. As the battle progressed, Chu Hen, who should have been at a loss, became calmer and calmer. His handsome face, which had a hint of coldness in it, was so calm that it made people feel uneasy. As a transcendent being of the ancient eternity realm, he could not see through the person in front of him. His murderous intent rose once again. Wong! Lei Aoqiong suddenly stretched out his arms and pointed them forward. Your speed is not bad, but speed alone is far from enough. Retract. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The next moment, each lightning wire branched out at the joint, and the branches extended and intertwined with the other branches. In the blink of an eye, the density of the omnipresent net doubled. Not waiting for Chu Hen to have the time to retreat, countless lightning iron wires gathered together and converged towards the same location. Like a huge cocoon, it completely sealed off all of his escape routes. The manic momentum made people feel extremely uneasy. Inside the cocoon, bolts of lightning that were like light swords darted toward Chu Hen, who was trapped in a narrow area. In the end, he still could not survive this move. The spectators in the distance watched with trembling eyes. They were in awe and fear. Once one fell into Lei Aoqiong's omnipresent net, it was almost impossible for one to escape. Boom! However, in the next moment, an extremely heavy and violent tremor came from inside the lightning cocoon. Purple flames rose from inside the cocoon. Following that, another powerful rhythm unfolded in the air. The power of mountains and rivers gathered at one point. Dubby finger, galaxy piercer. Bang! There was an earth-shattering sound, and lightning filled the sky. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, a huge hole was immediately broken open in the cocoon. First, purple flames surged into the sky, and then an extremely solid starlight pillar shot out like a divine sword. Wong Wong. Chapter 948. Buzz, buzz, along with the powerful rhythm of the sky, Dubby's finger pierced through the sky, surrounded by a domineering purple flame. After breaking a huge hole in the thunder cocoon that trapped Chu Hen, it swept up an incomparably vast and powerful force and smashed towards Lei Aoqiong. What? Everyone present was secretly shocked, and their faces were filled with astonishment. They had thought that Chu Hen, who had fallen into the inescapable trap, would not be able to escape death. They did not expect him to be able to counterattack so quickly. He was indeed a surprising stubborn rock. Humph. Lei Aoqiong's eyes turned cold, and a mocking look appeared on his face. He's so stubborn that it's disgusting. Lei Aoqiong extended both of his palms after he spoke. Numerous brilliant lightning symbols lingered over his palms and arms. His palms, which were covered in layers of lightning glow, faced the piercingly cold light pillar that was rushing over. Its majestic aura was like a mountain, sacred body of thunder. Sacred armor. Sizzle. The crisscrossing lightning arcs swam around Lei Aoqiong's body. Thousands of dazzling light vines overflowed and covered his body. They then transformed into a colorful, luxurious, and sacred armor. It was a sacred armor formed by the pure power of lightning. It was also the power of the sacred body of thunder. Every inch of it flashed with wild lightning. Whoosh! With a soft sound, a pair of blade-like light wings spread out from the back of the sacred armor. Its aura was shocking, like the armor of the god of war. Compared to the sacred armor that Lei Mingho and Lei Zhixin had created in the Xiansha sky region, Lei Aoqiong was much more powerful. Almost at the same time, the majestic light pillar formed by the Dubhe finger attacked. Bang! The two of them collided, and the sky shook. The ripples of light swept out in all directions. Lei Aoqiong's body was as still as a mountain, and a layer of lightning and light curtain rose in front of his palms. At the same time, the starlight pillar that was like a divine blade shattered inch by inch, like a stone pillar that had been broken and exploded, shattering bit by bit. Hiss! What a terrifying defense! What an enviable power! Everyone in the outer area gasped. This was the power of the divine body. It was simply terrifying. Shio! Then, a piercingly cold wind-breaking sound attacked, Lei Aoqiong again. Hua! The shocking sword aura was like a roaring gale. Together with the strong airflow, Lei Aoqiong was trapped in a fixed space. In an instant, streaks of incomparably sharp, humanoid sword chi appeared in the world. They were like phantoms, and their auras could destroy the heavens. That's the highest level of the one-sword flying immortal technique? The crowd below was shocked. It seems like Gong Yangyu only reached this level when he was almost 30, right? He's a genius. Flying immortal sword. In front of countless pairs of shocked eyes, the humanoid sword auras that were like death gods slashed at Lei Aoqiong at an extremely fast speed. They left behind many dazzling afterimages in the air. A powerful cyclone stirred. Bang, bang, bang. Continuous heavy explosions sounded in the air. The indestructible humanoid sword chi attacked Lei Aoqiong, but every single sword chi was repelled by his Thunder Soul sacred armor. They could not penetrate his defense. Layer after layer of chi ripples spread out in the air. The powerful attacks from the sword chi forced Lei Aoqiong to move backward, but his face was full of disdain. The spectators in the distance shook their heads. This won't do. Lei Aoqiong's sacred armor is too strong. It'll be difficult for the blue sky sword to break it. Even an idiot can see that sacred leader Qiong is an ancient eternal stage powerhouse. It's impossible for someone at the profound heaven stage to hurt him. That's right. Once sacred leader Qiong gets serious, even 10 Chu hens will be useless. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the last humanoid sword chi hit Lei Aoqiong solidly with a force that could split the sky. The scattered sword chi spread out wantonly, and a sword mark that was about 10 centimeters wide appeared on the holy armor that looked like the armor of the god of war. Then, the lightning gathered and floated, and the sword mark disappeared completely. Lei Aoqiong's damage was almost zero after a series of powerful attacks. Chu Hen, who had returned to his original position, had a cold look in his eyes. "You should be proud that you managed to leave a mark on my sacred armor," Lei Aoqiong said calmly. Lei Aoqiong said indifferently. Then he raised his eyelids and said in a deep voice, "Then what about this move? How are you going to deal with it?" Buzz! An intense and majestic aura surged out from Lei Aoqiong's body. Strong waves of energy stacked up in the air and shook the space. Everyone's pupils shrank involuntarily. The sky was filled with flashes of lightning. Then, 20 to 30 figures with piercingly cold auras separated from Lei Aoqiong's body as if they were possessed by ghosts, thunder clones. These figures were all formed from the powerful power of thunder and lightning. They were humanoid in shape, but their limbs, facial features, and torso were all bolts of lightning. They were cold and merciless, and they could kill without a trace. Lei Mingho had once used this lightning doppelganger technique on him. However, the latter's limit was only 10 clones. Lei Aoqiong could create 3 times more clones than Lei Mingho, and their strength and auras were not on the same level. Then, let me see what other trump cards you haven't used. Following Lei Aoqiong's frivolous sneer, 30 hellish guard-like figures charged towards Chu Hen while dragging incomparably manic bolts of lightning behind them. Death was like the wind, cold and murderous. Everyone inside and outside the Thunder Saint Palace could not help but reveal solemn expressions. Even the ice-cold demonic beasts were affected by the aura and revealed expressions of fear. The cruel scene of Chu Hen being surrounded and killed seemed to have appeared in everyone's mind. The corners of Chu Hen's mouth curled up slightly when he felt the dangerous aura of the dozens of powerful clones. Then you better open your eyes and watch carefully. As soon as he finished speaking, a strange aura suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's body. Buzz! A vast amount of true yuan surged out, and the world was immediately filled with the power of Tai Chi and Yin Yang. Chu Hen held the tyrannical power of white Yang in one hand, and the bone-chilling power of black Yin in the other. The 2 cyclones were held in his palms. Whoosh! Then, Chu Hen pushed his hands outwards, and a strange Tai Chi Yin Yang diagram appeared in the air. The sky turned pale, and the huge Tai Chi Yin-Yang diagram instantly expanded to a diameter of 100 feet. The 30 lightning clones that were charging at him all landed within the boundary of the diagram. This is under the surprised gazes of the crowd. Chu Hen's figure moved, and he instantly dashed out. A powerful aura swept out, and he was like an evil god that controlled life and death. Sky Dance of the Moon, Thousand Illusions. Whoosh! In the next moment, the space around each lightning avatar distorted and became uneasy. Moreover, an illusory afterimage appeared behind each of them. It was difficult to tell the real from the fake. Chapter 949. Boom! An incomparably majestic aura shook heaven and earth, shaking the entire sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. All kinds of turbulence filled the sect. A huge Tai Chi formation that spanned hundreds of meters appeared between heaven and earth. The 30 lightning clones on top of the formation were all pierced through the back and chest by a saint's sword. Then, a series of several dozen incomparably heavy and violent explosions rang out. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts blossomed like a shower of sparks before completely collapsing and exploding. The sword shadows that appeared out of thin air overlapped and returned to Chu Hen's body one after another. The shocking change happened in the blink of an eye. That's Moon sky enclosing dance, thousand phantoms, in a forest several kilometers away from the Thunder Saint Palace. Yi Yao, Long Xuan Xuan, Mu Feng, Hao Zi, and the others who were rushing over at top speed just happened to witness this scene. It's Big Brother Chu Hen. It can't be wrong. Yi Yao was both excited and shocked. This moon sky enclosing dance, thousand phantoms, was a technique she had comprehended from the great Tao divine stone fragment. Before the ancient desolate heaven territory opened, during the few days that they spent together after Chu Hen rescued Yi Yao from Shanghai City, she had taught Chu Hen the yin-yang sky palm, the greater teleportation technique, and the moon sky enclosing dance, thousand phantoms. Among them, the most difficult technique to learn was the last one. However, things were different now. Chu Hen, who had already reached the 7th level of the heaven profound realm, did not have much difficulty executing this technique. My God, this is the Thunder Saint Palace? Dan Zhun, Su Lang, and the rest of the Mount Kunliu disciples all widened their eyes. They were completely shocked, speechless by the scene in front of them. The holy land of martial arts that they knew of had been destroyed beyond recognition. Mountain ridges were razed to the ground, and luxurious buildings were reduced to ruins. Everywhere he looked, there was fresh soil that had been turned over. The intense battle filled the heavens and the earth. The rage of humans and the roars of demon beasts resounded through the heavens and the earth, and they interweaved together, causing one to tremble without end. Was this done by Chu Hen? Everyone looked at each other, and all of them noticed the extreme shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. Just how strong is this guy? Mu Feng frowned and said in a deep voice. However, no one had the time to be stunned. Their eyes flashed with a strong sense of determination. Go! Sky Dance of the Moon, Thousand Illusions. An astonishing, murderous aura wantonly surged like a raging wave. Chu Hen held his sword diagonally, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. His eyes flashed with a strange purple light as he stared coldly at Lei Aoqiong, who was like a god of war. Are you satisfied? These simple words were filled with mockery. Anger finally appeared on Lei Aoqiong's face. In an instant, more than 30 lightning clones were destroyed by Chu Hen with a single move. This was Lei Aoqiong's humiliation. Roar! The flames of battle continued to spread. As the experts of the Thunder Saint Palace stabilized, the attacks of the demonic beasts were suppressed. Bang! Palace Master Leija sent the huge body of the heavy rock bear flying with a single palm strike. The bear landed heavily on the ground and collapsed a mountain. Slaughter these evil beasts. Leija's eyes were cold, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He looked up at the infuriating young figure and shouted, "Don't even think of leaving my Thunder Saint Palace alive today." Just as the demonic beasts were being killed and forced to retreat, the ground suddenly cracked open. Boom! With an earth-shattering sound, a force that was like a volcanic eruption erupted into the sky. The surroundings trembled, and layers of gravel were crushed into powder. Along with a monstrous majesty, colorful clouds surged, and a huge golden ape suddenly appeared under the sky. What was going on? Everyone was shocked. In the next moment, a huge fist descended from the sky like a meteorite, heavily smashing into the crowd of people from the Thunder Saint Palace. Boom! The sudden impact caused the mountains and rivers to crack. The experts of the Thunder Saint Palace were caught off guard and didn't even have time to react before a group of them were directly killed. Everyone's eyes trembled slightly. They saw that it was a giant golden ape that was hundreds of meters tall. Its entire body was covered in thick golden fur, and its eyes were spewing flames. Its mouth revealed sharp teeth, and it revealed a ferocious yet domineering aura. "Big Brother Chu Hen, we're here." Yao's voice followed closely. Her delicate body was surrounded by the power of Tai Chi and Yin Yang. Her palms moved like willows, and together with the astonishing rhythm of space, a solid Tai Chi array spread out like a black and white wave toward the Thunder Saint Palace disciples in front of her. Sky dance of the moon, thousand illusions. Swish, swish, swish. Space distorted, and violent energy fluctuations set off around the dozens of Thunder Saint Palace disciples. In the next moment, an illusory phantom appeared behind each of them. It was like a dream, real and fake. It was exactly the same as the scene Chu Hen had just presented. In an instant, all the afterimages attacked at the same time, setting off a surging wave of palm energy. Boom! Bang! Dozens of powerful shock waves exploded high up in the sky. Layers of rippling light patterns were especially dazzling. Miserable screams rang out one after another as the powerful palm force penetrated through the spines of those Thunder Saint Palace disciples. Blood rained down, and dozens of people fell to the ground like birds with broken wings, becoming corpses one after another. I say, Chu Hen, are you looking down on us, brothers? How can you not have me, the marshal, in your fight? Sword Demon descends. Mu Feng shouted loudly, and the veins on his forehead and arms bulged. Buzz, a surging aura surged out, and endless flowing light patterns gathered on the Buddha demon's sword. He gripped the hilt tightly with both arms, and his eyes were scarlet red. As if he was swinging a heavy object, he swung the sword forward. Whoosh! Surging waves of air surged, and a blue sword light as wide as a river swept forward. In an instant, heaven and earth were overshadowed, and the condensed sword light swept across the Thunder Saint Palace disciples. Boom! As if they had been hit by a mountain, blood spurted out of their mouths, and they were sent flying. Many of them were directly chopped into pieces and died on the spot. Chu Hen, we're here. I'm here too. Who cares if they're from the Thunder Saint Palace or not? Let's kill a few of them first. Haozi, Long Xuan Shuang, Shan Zhen, Su Lang, Lung Lingyan, Qin, Qi, Shu, and Hua all rushed to the scene. Each and every one of them used everything they had learned in their lives and integrated it into the battle. Everyone was very clear that the moment they stepped into the Thunder Saint Palace, it was equivalent to having one foot in the King of Hell. Being enemies with the Thunder Saint Palace meant that they were prepared to die. A bunch of mobs. Leisha's eyes were cold and fierce, and he glared at the crowd. Do you all want your entire clan to be annihilated? Shut up. Monkey, beat him up. Mu Feng shouted. Roar. As soon as he finished speaking, the eyes of the peerless golden demon ape spewed out scorching flames. His face was ferocious, and he smashed his fist down. His huge fist was like a small mountain, and his whole body was covered in vigorous golden flames. Leisha was furious, and he raised his palm, which flickered with violent lightning, to directly meet the impact of the opponent's fist. You're just a mere beast, and you dare to be so rash in front of this lord. Scram, bang. The extremely uncoordinated fist and palm collided, causing the earth to explode and the mountains to tremble. Rings of powerful light patterns immediately spilled out from the center of the two. Although there was a huge difference in size between the two, Leisha stood unwaveringly in the same place like a boulder, while the golden demon ape was directly sent flying by the terrifying power of the opponent's body, smashing through more than half of the mountain ridge before coming to a stop. Leja's cultivation had reached the 9th stage of the profound sky realm, and he was second only to the sect's holy lord, Laotian. Although he was injured by the power of the 7 stars summoned by Chu Hen, an ordinary heavenly beast would be killed with a single palm strike. However, what was even more surprising was that the golden demon ape, who was thought to be at least heavily injured, actually crawled out of the pile of rocks again. Although there was blood at the corner of his mouth, the aura he emitted was even more powerful. Chapter 950. Roar! The giant golden ape crawled out of the rubble, with blood dripping from the corner of its mouth. Its eyes spewed golden flames, and its front body crawled on the ground, like a fierce tiger and wolf about to attack. Leja frowned, and his eyes overflowed with murderous light. Evil beast, ow! As soon as the voice fell, the giant ape suddenly kicked the ground, and a deep crack spread along its feet. The monstrous flame was like an erupting volcano. It rushed towards Leja with a ferocious face. At the same time, it folded its arms, crossed its fingers, and blasted towards Leja's head. This beast, Leja was secretly shocked. With his cultivation at the 9th stage of the sky profound realm, he actually had a trace of fear in front of this strange giant ape. While feeling suspicious, Leja once again opened his palm, and the violent thunder and lightning intertwined like a net, instantly turning into 100 meters wide thunder and lightning palm print. Die! Rumble! The huge thunder and lightning palm print rose to the sky and blasted towards the giant golden ape. Bang! A heavy explosion swept through the sky, and the giant golden ape smashed into the thunder and lightning palm print like a mountain. The mountains and rivers were about to split, and the earth trembled. A terrifying river of light swept out in all directions. Layer upon layer of vast and mighty shock waves poured down, causing the ground below to crack and collapse. Tens of thousands of crushed rocks were lifted into the air. The giant golden ape was blasted out again. However, this time, Leja, the palace master of the Thunder Saint Palace, was also hit by a huge wave and was pushed back more than 10 meters by the strong shock force. Screech. Then, a loud and passionate eagle cry resounded through the sky. The black cloud condor, with a wingspan of more than 1,000 meters, suddenly seized this opportunity. It flew diagonally across the sky, turning into a shocking curved blade arc, and slashed down towards Leja, who had already used up all his strength. The majestic air wave was overwhelming, shocking the sky. The huge shadow blade that spanned 1,000 meters exuded the power to destroy heaven and earth. Leja's pupils could not help but tremble, and in a hurry, he quickly used the power of thunder and lightning to create an illusory thunder and lightning armor. Almost at the same time, the huge shadow blade fiercely fell on his body. Boom! The ground crumbled inch by inch as a huge ravine extended from the rubble below. The spectacular scene changed the color of heaven and earth. From afar, Leja looked like he had been hit by a crescent moon falling from the sky. The terrifying power was concentrated on the opponent's body. The thunder's sacred armor that Leja had condensed in a hurry was directly shattered. The gorgeous robe in front of his chest was split open along with his flesh. Blood danced in the air, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. Bang! Leja quickly retreated in a sorry state. He covered his wound with one hand, and his face was pale and angry. Damn bastard! The battle here was extremely intense, and the spectators in the outer area were all dumbfounded. Shock was written all over everyone's faces. Oh my god, what the hell is that? Black Cloud Eagle, level 6 heavenly beast. I'm not talking about the Black Cloud Condor. I'm talking about the Golden Ape. It actually blocked 2 heavy blows from Leja and didn't die. If it was the Black Cloud Condor, it would have died on the spot. It's really strange. Even if Leja was injured before, it's impossible for him to be defeated by 2 heavenly beasts. This Chu Hen has too many secrets. The giant Golden Ape and the Black Cloud Condor's temporary coordination was truly stunning. Leja, who had already suffered a lot of injuries, once again suffered a second injury. Even so, the Thunder Saint Palace still stabilized the situation. After all, the overall strength of Long Xuan Xuan, Mu Feng, Yi Yao, Lung Ling Yan, and the others could not make up for the gap between the Thunder Saint Palace and the Thunder Saint Palace. Although Chu Hen had used the power of 7 stars to kill a very spectacular number, but those who had the ability to survive were still not to be underestimated. This was the difference between a giant force and an ordinary sect. A skinny camel will always be bigger than a horse. Rumble. But right at this moment, another gust of violent wind that covered the heavens and the earth swept through the sky. Wen Liang is here. Xia Wuha is here. Accompanied by a vast and mighty aura, thousands of sharp figures charged towards the Thunder Saint Palace one after another, dragging their sharp blades behind them. It's the Fairy Palace Master and the others. Dan Zhan's eyes lit up as she exclaimed in surprise. Su Lang was also very surprised. The 3 Palace Masters are here. No, it's all of us from Mount Kunliu who are here. Lung Lingyan's beautiful eyes trembled as she said softly. Mount Kunliu had arrived, led by the Fairy Palace Master, the Demon Slayer Palace Master, and the Void Palace Master. The senior elders and thousands of disciples were all here. This was also the backbone of Mount Kunliu. Chu Hen, we're here, Chi Han Yu shouted coldly. She stared at the thin and slender young figure in the sky with a deep look in her eyes. Chaos, a chaotic battle. Chu Hen wielded the blue sky sword, and his sword aura was like that of the Lord of Mount Kunliu. Looking at the chaotic scene before him, Lei Aoqiong laughed mockingly and mockingly. A mere Mount Kunliu with a bunch of ants dares to provoke me. I can't help but be surprised by your stupidity. The supreme aura announced the wrath of the king. Everyone on Mount Kunliu was shocked by Lei Aoqiong's powerful aura, but they did not stop moving. They all joined the battle and killed their way into it. Everything happened too suddenly, but seemed to be reasonable. Are the people of Mount Kunliu crazy? The spectators at the periphery were shocked. In their opinion, Mount Kunliu was playing with fire. Ha! Thunder Saint Palace, I, Wen Liang, have always dreamed of trampling you under my feet. Demon Slayer Palace Master Wen Liang laughed loudly as he held a heavy halberd in his hand. He was extremely domineering as he continuously defeated the opponents of Thunder Saint Palace. Don't brag, Olwen. I think you never dreamed that this day would come. Void Temple Master Xia Wuha sneered as he turned into a shadow and silently appeared behind an expert of Thunder Saint Palace. Then, he pierced his opponent's spine with his palm. You guys must be tired of living. I'll let you lowly ants come, but you won't be able to return. The 2 experts of the sky, profound realm, immediately attacked the 2 of them with swift and fierce moves. The 2 of them did not want to be outdone and displayed everything they had learned in their lives to meet the attacks. The battle was getting more and more intense. The chaos continued to spread. In the blink of an eye, Thunder Saint Palace had already become a battlefield of weapons. The roars of demonic beasts shook the heavens, and angry shouts echoed. The 2 groups of people were like a raging tsunami. Sharp blades flew everywhere, and streaks of light collided with each other. Shockwave after shockwave exploded in the air. Without a doubt, Mount Kunliu's actions had directly angered Lei Aoqiong's limitless killing intent. Very good. Lei Aoqiong coldly looked at Chu Hen in front of him. The corner of his mouth rose into a cold smile that was as sharp as a curved blade. It's been a long time since I've had the urge to start a massacre. Thanks to you, not only will they all die today, everyone related to you will completely disappear. Chi. The indestructible Thunder Saint armor flickered with dazzling lightning. It was so beautiful that it looked like a lightning dragon circling around its body. Feeling the strong, killing intent that originated from his opponent, an incomparably cold expression floated on Chu Hen's face. I'm looking forward to how it feels to kill an ancient Eternal Realm expert. That demonic arc was like the bloody scythe in the hands of the evil god. Wah! A strange energy wave swept across the entire area. A purple light flashed in the depths of Chu Hen's eyes, and the 5 black dots emitted a heart-palpitating rhythm. At the same time, on a mountain a dozen miles away from the Thunder Saint Palace, at the peak of the mountain stood a balcony. The balcony was vast and imposing. Green and white stone pillars stood in the sky, and every 2 pillars were connected by iron chains. Buzz! Suddenly, 2 dazzling golden beams of light fell from the sky and directly fell on the east and west sides of the platform. A wave of piercingly cold air spread out and stacked on top of each other. The light beams dissipated, and a few figures with extraordinary bearing appeared on the left and right sides respectively, especially the 2 people at the front. They were extraordinary and refined, causing one to feel as if everything else in the world was eclipsed by their aura. The person on the left was slightly plump, with white hair and a white beard. He had the air of an otherworldly expert. On the other hand, the person on the right was dressed luxuriously, with a jade crown on his head. He exuded the nobility of an emperor. The 2 looked at each other. There was the indifference of acquaintances meeting and the cold arrogance of opponents. "You're quite punctual," sect leader Qiao Yong. The luxuriously dressed, middle-aged man looked up and said indifferently. The elder smiled. "Aren't you the same?" Hall Master Xingyi. "Wah!" Qiao Yong. Xingyi. If anyone else was here, they would definitely be dumbfounded by the scene in front of them. These 2 were none other than the sect leader of the Thousand Worlds sect and the Hall Master of the Johua Palace. They were both ancient, eternal realm existences. They were existences that stood at the top of the pyramid of the province, and the other one was only a few dozen miles away from them. Today, 3 ancient, eternal realm powerhouses had appeared in the same place. This was definitely something that could shake the entire province. There was no excessive exchange of words. Both sides knew what the other was thinking. "Since you're all here, let's go," Xingyi said indifferently. At the same time, he looked meaningfully in the direction of the Thunder Saint Palace. Over there, the sky was dark and the earth was dark. The fusion of true essence and thunder and lightning made it seem as if the sky was about to collapse, and the winds and clouds surged. "I really didn't think that the Thunder Saint Palace would have such a day." Qiao Yong smiled and shook his head with some mockery and helplessness. Just as everyone was about to leave the high balcony, another solid pillar of light pierced through the sky and landed on a mountain in front of them. Invisible waves of air spread out. The grass and trees trembled, and the earth trembled slightly. Immediately after, a middle-aged man with an extraordinary appearance appeared in the mountain range. Although his clothes were ordinary, he could not hide the powerful aura that was revealed in his eyes. "I've waited for a long time, you 2. The middle-aged man cupped his fists in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Facing these 2 top powerhouses of the province, he didn't show much emotion. Xingyi frowned and shouted coldly. "Who are you?" The middle-aged man looked up and spat out a few words. Chapter 9:51. I am Gong Yongyu. The middle-aged man was neither servile nor overbearing. His gaze was calm as he cupped his fists together. He did not reveal too much emotion in front of these 2 top experts in the province. "Gong Yongyu?" Xingyi, the palace master of the Johua Palace, said disdainfully, "Why isn't nobody blocking our way? I recognize you." On the other side, Qiao Yong, the sect master of the Thousand Worlds sect, raised his head and extended his right hand. "Gong Yongyu, the leader of Mount Kunliu. 20 years ago, you were already one of the top 10 experts of the province. You were also the youngest one. Am I right?" Gong Yongyu smiled warmly. "You flatter me, sect master Qiao. I am ashamed. One of the top 10 experts?" A hint of frivolity appeared between Xingyi's brows. The top 10 experts of the province region were only limited to those in the sky profound realm, and did not include the 3 peak existences in the eternal realm. After all, Qiao Yong, Xingyi, and Lei Aoqiong's positions were unshakable. As for the ranking from 20 years ago, it was even more unreliable. In the past 20 years, the victorious East Province had produced many experts, and there were many who had reached the late profound sky realm. Even though Gong Yongyu was full of metal, Mount Kunliu was still a powerhouse in front of the Myriad Worlds sect and the Johua Palace. It was no wonder that everyone was unhappy with Gong Yanyu blocking their way. Sect Master Qiao, Home Master Xing, I've been waiting here for a long time. I hope the two of you can stop here. Gong Yangyu's voice was not loud, and his tone was very humble. However, his words still shocked the people in front of him. Bastard, who do you think you are? Do you know who you're talking to? A Jiuhua Palace disciple stepped forward and shouted. Gong Yangyu was not angry, and his eyes were still friendly. Xiao Yong replied, Tell me your reason. It's very simple. I sincerely ask the two of you to be magnanimous and not interfere with the grudge between Chu Hen and the Thunder Saint Palace. His words had exposed the mystery behind it. Xiao Yong and Xing Yi looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. You knew we would come? Xiao Yong asked. Gong Yangyu humbly nodded his head. The astonishment on Xiao Yong's face deepened. At the same time, he couldn't help but look at Gong Yangyu with an additional tinge of appreciation. The person in front of him did not seem to be an ordinary person. Whether it was Xiao Yong, Xing Yi, or Gong Yangyu, all of them were intelligent people. They didn't need to converse too much to understand each other's intentions. Gong Yangyu's motive was already very clear. He knew that the Myriad World sect and the Palace of Jiuhua would never turn a blind eye to the Thunder Saint Palace's plight. For more than 1,000 years, these three behemoths were supreme existences that no one in the province could shake. Before this, the overall strength of the three major forces was not that different. That was a main point. Since Chu Hen had the ability to shake the position of the Thunder Saint Palace, it was enough to prove that he had the ability to threaten the Thousand Worlds sect and the Palace of Jiuhua. Although Lei Aoqiong's cultivation was so strong that it would not cause them to worry too much. However, if there was a 1 in 10 million chance that the final victor was Chu Hen, then the entire Victory Estate would welcome an unprecedented reshuffle. This was definitely not what the Thousand Worlds sect and the Palace of Jiuhua wanted to see. If Chu Hen really destroyed the Thunder Saint Palace like an earth-shattering attack, it would be a huge blow to the position of the other two giants. From now on, the three major forces were no longer invincible in the eyes of the world. This was the reason why Xiao Yong and Xing Yi, the two Eternal Realm cultivators, had arrived. Of course, they might not directly interfere in this matter. After all, they knew Lei Aoqiong's strength. If Lei Aoqiong killed Chu Hen, then it would naturally be a smooth sailing and prove that the Thunder Saint Palace was still powerful. However, once the two of them predicted that the Thunder Saint Palace was about to fall into a disadvantageous position, the two of them would immediately appear and stop the battle from continuing. At that time, the world would only think that the Thousand Worlds sect and the Palace of Jiuhua had arrived at the crucial moment and quelled Lei Aoqiong's anger, thus parting the people of Mount Kunliu from death. As for Chu Hen, his ending would definitely not be good. Only one of them could survive. From Xiao Yong and Xing Yi's point of view, the answer was obvious. You are truly a smart person. I believe that in a few years, Mount Kunliu will definitely become an overlord. I really look forward to seeing that day. Xiao Yong looked at Gong Yangyu in front of him meaningfully. This sentence was both a compliment and a warning. Gong Yangyu smiled slightly. He naturally understood what Xiao Yong was referring to. If he turned and left now, the other party would not pursue the crime of blocking their path. However, if he did not understand the situation and continued to pester them, then Mount Kunliu would have no future to speak of. I'm very sorry. When the two of you arrived, all the disciples of Mount Kunliu had already participated in the battle against the Thunder Saint Palace. What? Xiao Yong was slightly shocked. He did not dare to believe it. Xing Yi, on the other hand, could not help but sneer in disdain. Like a moth flying into a flame, you're digging your own grave. Looks like Sect Master Xiao Yong needs to take back his words. You're not smart. You think you could defeat the Thunder Saint Palace with just your subordinates? Every single word was extremely impactful. However, Gong Yangyu was extremely calm. He looked at Xing Yi and said, however, the two of you still came in the end. They still came in the end. Since they came, it meant that no matter how powerful Lei Aoqiong was, the two of them were still slightly worried. How dare you? Xing Yi was instantly enraged. His eyes were filled with coldness. Other than Xiao Yong and Lei Aoqiong, there was no one else in the Eastern Victory State who dared to speak to him like this. Gong Yangyu was not afraid at all when he felt the coldness from the other party. He said indifferently, "I'll say it again. The enmity between Chu Hen and the Thunder Saint Palace should be resolved by themselves. I beg the two of you to stop here." As soon as he finished speaking, the coldness from Xing Yi's body intensified. Immediately, he did not hide the threat in his words. "You want me to interfere in your life and death?" On the other side, Xiao Yong did not say anything. Just as Gong Yangyu had said, since they had come, they could not stop here. In truth, Xiao Yong admired Gong Yangyu's courage and wisdom. However, he was somewhat obstinate and self-opinionated. In the entire Eastern Victory State, no one dared to stand in front of the two of them. However, what happened next shocked Xiao Yong even more. Even under the threat of Xing Yi's destruction, Gong Yangyu's gaze was still resolute and his expression was calm. "Please." Gong Yangyu raised his hand and made a gesture of please. Just as he finished speaking, Xing Yi's eyes suddenly erupted with two balls of light, accompanied by an incomparably powerful aura. With a loud bang, the entire mountain range beneath Gong Yangyu's body instantly crumbled and caved in. Boom! Tens of thousands of rocks flew into the air. The ground under Gong Yangyu's feet collapsed layer by layer and shattered inch by inch. A powerful cyclone formed around him, forming a huge whirlpool of wind. Rocks of all sizes flew in all directions towards Gong Yangyu, who was in the center. The densely packed rocks immediately merged to form a huge rock ball that was 100 feet wide. Gong Yangyu was directly submerged within it. Foolish. Xing Yi laughed coldly. Xiao Yong shook his head helplessly, as if he felt pity for Gong Yangyu. However, in the next instant, an extremely sharp sound filled the sky. A solid golden sword light actually descended from the sky. It was like a divine rainbow as it landed solidly on the rock ball. The sound of rocks being cut entered everyone's ears. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the huge rock ball that was 100 feet wide was actually split into two halves. Boom! The huge rock wall was like a small mountain that smashed down heavily. Gong Yangyu stood in the air, his sword aura piercingly cold. Rays of illusory and formless sword chi circled around his body, displaying its shocking sharpness. "You?" The Thousand World sect leader Xiao Yong's eyes widened. His usually calm face was now filled with shock. Chapter 952. You have also reached the ancient eternal stage, boom. Along with the two halves of the giant rock wall, Thousand World sect leader Xiao Yong's face was filled with shock and astonishment. He, who had always been as calm as a mountain and was used to seeing great winds and waves, was also moved at this moment. The same was true for Xing Yi, the palace master of Jihua Palace. After so many years, a fourth ancient eternal stage cultivator had appeared in the Victories province. This meant that from now on, there would be more than just 3 sects ruling the province. Mount Kunliu, Gong Yangyu, everything was too unexpected. Gong Yangyu stood in the air with an awe-inspiring sword aura. His eyes were still calm and indifferent like the water in an ancient well. Numerous illusory sword auras lingered around his body, like the world-shocking sharpness that could not be extinguished even after 1,000 years. The air and the surroundings seemed to speed up. Spatial vibrations came from the direction of the Thunder Saint Palace. On the other side, Gong Yangyu stood alone in front of the people from the Thousand World sect and Palace of Jihua. His aura was calm, neither servile nor overbearing. His deep eyes were as steady as a boulder. Humph. Why did I say that you had the guts to block the way? You came prepared. I was wrong, Xing Yi said coldly. At the same time, the aura he exuded became even colder. It was obvious that he was not just angry at Gong Yangyu for blocking the way. The threat of the Victories province was not just Chu Hen. The strength of Mount Kunliu had long surpassed the imagination of the world. I have no intention of becoming enemies with the two of you. Whether it is Mount Kunliu or the Thunder Saint Palace, they do not have much of a grudge with the Thousand World sect and Palace of Jihua. If I am biased towards the Thunder Saint Palace just to hurt the two of you, it is really unfair to Chu Hen. Gong Yangyu said. Sect leader Qiao Yong of the Thousand Worlds sect shook his head and said, if this is the only reason, then you are underestimating sect leader Xing Yi and I too much. Do you know how many lives the existence of the Thunder Saint Palace concerns? If even the three great forces cannot control the hearts of the people, the Victory East Province will usher in chaos. Have you ever thought about these things? Yes. Are you still going to act willfully? Qiao Yong asked. Gong Yangyu lifted his head slightly, his tone filled with majesty. I'm just a boorish man. I'm neither a monarch nor a marquis. I'm just a commoner. I can't interfere with the affairs of the world. I only know that Chu Hen is a member of my Mount Kunlu. No one can interfere with his life or death. Hua. His words clearly displayed Gong Yangyu's determination and attitude. Today, he had to protect Chu Hen. Ha, what bold words. It's just a mere Mount Kunlu, how bold. Xing Yi, the palace master of the Johua Palace, laughed coldly. Then, his voice paused, and his tone suddenly became sharp. I want to see, without your help, how can that arrogant brat at the profound sky realm defeat Lei Aoqiong? Moreover, I want to see, with just you, Gong Yangyu, what ability do you have to stop me? With that, Xing Yi instantly disappeared from where he was. Like a flickering shadow, he immediately appeared in front of Gong Yangyu, his vast aura surging towards the other party. Gong Yangyu's eyes narrowed. He waved one hand with two fingers and released an incomparably condensed and powerful sword chi. Chaotic true origin sword chi surged, layer after layer. Between heaven and earth, wild winds raged and cyclones soared into the sky. The moment the two ancient eternal realm experts clashed, it immediately caused the sky to darken. One punch, one kick, one palm, one sword. The terrifying shockwaves produced swept in all directions, flattening the forest and reversing the waterfall. Looking at Gong Yangyu, who was calm under Xing Yi's attacks, Qiao Yong, who was on the high platform, revealed a somewhat complicated expression. It had to be said that Gong Yangyu was really a martial arts genius. Nearly 20 years ago, he was already one of the top 10 experts of the profound sky realm in the province. Now, he had become the fourth existence of the ancient eternal realm. A small Mount Kunlu was really not simple. But then again, the amount of time Gong Yangyu took to enter the ancient eternal realm was far less than Xing Yi. If Gong Yangyu couldn't find the time to go and help, Chu Hen would most likely die. Qiao Yong let out a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the chaotic sky in the direction of the Thunder Saint Palace. Although it's a pity, there's no other way. Boom! Bang! Flames raged in the sky. Mountains crumbled and the earth cracked. The increasingly chaotic battle spread to every corner of the Thunder Saint Palace. Thousands of people from Mount Kunlu joined in, cooperating with the powerful demonic beast to cause chaos to the people of the Thunder Saint Palace. The sky darkened, and the giant beasts roared. Huge, ferocious beasts clashed with the pitch-black crowd, stirring up energy ripples that soared into the sky. Without a doubt, the main reason for this battle between the two sects, the Thunder Saint Palace and Mount Kunlu, was the two figures fighting fiercely in the sky. Mount Kunlu had bet everything. The Thunder Saint Palace had also given everything. Who would win or lose, it all depended on those two. Bang! Ding! In the sky, Chu Hen was fighting against the master of the Thunder Saint Palace, fighting firmament. One after another, dazzling afterimages flickered in the world. Chu Hen's imposing manner shook the heavens. Powerful purple flames and black radiance intertwined and revolved around his body. The blue sky sword revolved around him, like a sacred sword protecting his body, swallowing and spitting out eerie sword aura. Lei Aoqiong was even more dazzling, like a god of war. His domineering sacred thunder armor was overflowing with color, and it was indestructible. The lightning pillars that shot out were even more dangerous than the lightning dragons and lightning pythons. The lightning pythons and sword chi intertwined, causing a bright rain of fire to erupt in the sky. Although Lei Aoqiong's aura was not just a little bit stronger than Chu Hen's, Every time they clashed, Chu Hen was not at a disadvantage. Like a boulder, the more he fought, the braver he became. Each and every one of Lei Aoqiong's moves was deadly and ruthless. The explosive power of the sacred body of thunder was displayed to the fullest. More and more wounds appeared on Chu Hen's body, but he was still not afraid. His attacks and defenses were not messed up. This was not what everyone had expected. Chu Hen's strength was beyond everyone's imagination. What a tough guy. He's already withstood more than 100 attacks from Sacred Lord Qiong, right? The spectators in the distance murmured in surprise. Look over there. Suddenly, a voice full of doubt and surprise sounded. Then, everyone's gazes swept toward the sky on the other side. There, heaven and earth were also moving and clouds were surging. What's going on? Are there strong cultivators fighting over there as well? It looks like a very intense battle. Who wants to go take a look? Bang! Just as everyone was feeling confused, an earth-shattering explosion drew everyone's attention back to the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. ZZT, countless huge lightning pillars intertwined. When Lei Aoqiong sent Chu Hen flying with a palm strike, he stretched out his arms and froze. Chapter 953. Sizzle, sizzle, countless bolts of lightning intertwined in the sky, and a dazzling screen of lightning appeared between Lei Aoqiong and Chu Hen. Lei Aoqiong's eyes flashed with killing intent. Then he stretched out his arms and froze in midair. Rumble. The screen of lightning was like a door that opened to a mysterious era. Then a huge barbarian lightning ox directly rushed out. Their auras soared into the sky, such as the terrifying, ferocious creatures from the primordial world. The world lost color, and blinding lightning flashed in the sky. Everyone could feel a strong, majestic pressure. Lightning beast strikes the sky. Along with Lei Aoqiong's cold and fierce aura, the lightning beast, which was as huge as a small mountain, stepped on the air with its 4 hooves. It swept up a ferocious aura that overflowed the heavens as it charged towards Chu Hen. Behind it, there were condensed and manic lightning pillars. The vast and mighty aura was comparable to a magnificent army launching a crazy slaughter and assault. Chu Hen, who was in front of it, seemed extremely small. He was like a small boat in front of a raging tsunami. Clearly, Lei Aoqiong had no intention of dragging things out any longer. This attack was filled with endless killing intent. And just at this moment, the corners of Chu Hen's eyes that were focused suddenly lifted. Buzz, a strong rhythm shook the space, and a dense purple splendor rose to the sky. Chu Hen's eyes emitted a demonic purple light, and the 5 black dots in the depths of his pupils rapidly rotated. In an instant, a loud bang shook the heavens, and the enormous barbarian lightning beast solidly collided with a purple curtain of light. Lightning flashed, and purple flames filled the sky. A surging wave of energy swept out in all directions. Everyone's expressions changed, and their eyes trembled as they watched the scene unfold above them. That is, he blocked it? How is that possible? That's an all-out attack from an ancient eternity cultivator. A powerful cyclone filled the sky, and everyone's eyes were fixed on the purple screen of light in front of the raging lightning bolt. It was a strange shield. It was wide at the top and pointed at the bottom, like a large token. On the surface of the shield was the image of a pair of demonic eyes, like the eyes of an ancient demon god. Shield of Punishment. The power of a 5-star demon pupil, one attacking and one defending. The incomparably intense explosive power was especially shocking. Lei Aoqiong's eyes grew colder. How can a mere carving skill stop me? Break for me, clang. Bolt after bolt of tribulation, lightning descended from the sky like silver dragons, and they transformed into a powerful source of energy that flowed into the barbaric lightning ox. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts gathered into one. The barbarian lightning ox's body couldn't help but solidify a little, and the lightning arcs that covered its body wantonly flickered, making it look exceptionally furious. Moo! He raised his sharp horns high and slammed them against the shield once again. Bang! The astonishing explosive force caused the surrounding space to tremble uneasily. In the next instant, light and shadow flew, and purple light splashed in all directions. The light screen, which possessed great defensive power, was directly split apart from the middle. Cracks appeared on the surface of the light screen, as if it was frozen and cracked. Not good. Everyone from Mount Kunliu was greatly alarmed, and their faces were filled with shock. It's really too much. The flying immortal hall master, Chi Hanyu, tightly clenched her sword, her eyes revealing a grave expression. Everyone else was also shocked. Aside from reverence for Lei Aoqiong's strength, they were mostly filled with disbelief for Chu Hen. Just what level of defensive power was that? It was actually able to withstand 2 of Lei Aoqiong's attacks. Moo! Before everyone could recover from their shock, the barbaric lightning ox let out a deafening roar and erupted with an aura that was even more furious than before. It's over. It definitely can't withstand a third attack. Everyone's eyes narrowed, and their expressions tensed up. But it was also at this moment that a surging purple tide surged out of nowhere. At the same time, the purple flames were mixed with a black vortex of light. Bang! An incomparably heavy muffled sound rang out, and a purple dragon shadow covered in a black cyclone crashed into the abdomen of the barbarian lightning beast with a momentum that soared into the sky. All the lightning power struck the front of the ox's horns. The other parts of the ox were all weak points. In just an instant, the enormous ox exploded from the center, bursting into millions of dazzling light shadows, and dazzling lightning covered the sky. What? Everyone turned pale with fright. The Thunder Saint Palace, Mount Kunliu, and the countless spectators outside the battle were all astonished. There was no third time. The entire sky above the Thunder Saint Palace shook uneasily, and the wind blew away the clouds. Roar! The purple dragon soared into the sky, its power suppressing the Milky Way. The black flames attached to it added a few hints of evilness, giving off the feeling that it was a dark, evil dragon from hell. It didn't give anyone any time to recover. The dragon looked down at the ground, then swooped down, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws at Lei Aoqiong. The violent and powerful air waves surged toward Lei Aoqiong, who felt like he was in the middle of a gust of wind. Oomph! Lei Aoqiong's eyes were gloomy, and the war god's divine armor on his body emitted arcs of light. Then he raised his palms to the sky, and a ball of lightning surged out to meet the diving dragon. Boom! An earth-shattering power exploded in the sky. A purple storm stirred up the sky and enveloped Lei Aoqiong like a rain of fire. Thousands of fireballs sprayed out. Everyone below was shaken by the powerful aftershock, causing their blood and chi to churn. Is that all you've got? Lei Aoqiong, who was in the rain of fire, was still unscathed, and his aura was fierce like an invincible god of war. Buzz, however, before he finished speaking, Lei Aoqiong suddenly frowned, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. The others below were stunned at first, and then they were also astonished. What's that? Buzz! A strange energy wave spread out, and a layer of strange black shadow attached to Lei Aoqiong's back. The layer of black shadow seemed to be stuck to him, and from afar, the outline of the black shadow looked very similar to Chu Hen. Lei Zhixin's eyes trembled in a corner below. She couldn't be more familiar with this strange shadow. She had seen it twice in the Xian Kshetra sky region. That black shadow seemed to be growing stronger with Chu Hen's power. It was mysterious, and it made people's hearts beat faster. Lei Aoqiong found that his movement was greatly restricted. The black shadow behind him was like a ghost that bound his hands and feet, and even the true origin energy in his body was being devoured. How is this possible? Lei Aoqiong was shocked, angry, and confused. The bloodline limit of the sacred thunder body that he was so proud of was being suppressed. Whoosh! He did not have time to think of a countermeasure. An extremely cold and dense aura surged toward him like a cold current. It seems like you're not very powerful. Sacred Lord Lei. The indifferent voice was mixed with a hint of mockery. Everyone was shocked. Lei Aoqiong's expression also changed. A blurry afterimage traversed through the air. What appeared in front of him was a handsome face that carried a little evil and strangeness. Buzz, an extremely violent energy wave erupted from Chu Hen's left palm. Inexhaustible starlight gathered in Chu Hen's palm like a tornado. In an instant, the pattern of the Big Dipper floated in Chu Hen's palm. All 7 spots of light were lit up. It was as if Chu Hen was in control of the stars, as if he was holding the sun in his hand. He gave rise to an unprecedented aura as he directly rushed in front of Lei Aoqiong. He stretched out his palm and firmly slammed it on the other party's chest. Chapter 954. 7-star Soul Crit. The 7 specks of light were all lit up. Inexhaustible starlight gathered at the center of Chu Hen's palm like a whirlpool. A beautiful and resplendent Big Dipper pattern floated in his palm, controlling the heavens and drawing upon the power of heaven and earth. Along with an incomparably terrifying and transcendent aura, Chu Hen's eyes exploded with a demonic purple light. He struck out with his palm and solidly struck Lei Aoqiong's chest. Bang! A loud explosion shook the heavens. Chi waves rose into the sky. A vast and violent power erupted like a torrent. In an instant, the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace began to tremble violently. Silver starlight that could topple mountains and overturn seas engulfed everything in all directions. Chu Hen's power was like a mountain, like a mad dragon coming out of the sea. An unparalleled power poured down. Lei Aoqiong's body felt like it was hit by a meteorite. The sacred thunder armor in front of his chest cracked like a blossoming crystal flower. What? Lei Aoqiong's eyes widened. He was furious. Everyone who witnessed this was equally shocked, and their faces were filled with shock. Sacred thunder armor. That saint armor that was like the war god's helmet, that could break through anything, was forcibly pierced through by Chu Hen's attack at this very moment. Bang! After that, an explosion resounded, and the entire sacred lightning armor that covered Lei Aoqiong's body shattered inch by inch, and it directly exploded into countless crystalline fragments. A vast wave of light rippled out between the two of them. Lei Aoqiong's pupils trembled. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Oh my God! How is this possible? A strong, piercingly cold air whistled through the sky. Everyone present felt their hearts tremble. Their eyes were wide open, and their faces were filled with disbelief. Eternal realm. An existence that stood at the peak of the victorious East State had actually been injured by a junior in the profound sky realm. Even though they had seen it with their own eyes, they did not dare to believe that the scene in front of them was real. Unease began to fill the hearts of everyone from the Thunder Saint Palace. Palace Master Lei Zhi felt true fear for the first time, especially Lei Zhi. She couldn't help but clench her trembling hands. Her complicated eyes were filled with fear. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Lei Zhi's heart could collapse at any time. Meanwhile, Lei Xiaolan, who was standing behind her, pursed her lips tightly as she stared at the young figure who had pressed his left palm against Lei Aoqiong's chest. Outside his body, the demonic purple light and the strange black light were like divine flames fused together. His handsome and resolute side profile looked as if it had been carved by a knife, emitting infinite sharpness. The Thunder Saint Palace is done for. Lei Xiaolan muttered with despair in her heart. At the same time, the corner of Chu Hen's mouth curled up into a demonic smile. What a pity, you Thunder Saint Palace. It's over. Buzz. The air trembled, and the cold wind was like a sword. Lei Aoqiong's pupils constricted slightly, and they reflected the purple pupils that were right in front of him. You? Fear, unease, surprise, and intense anger. Chu Hen smiled like the Grim Reaper, and his voice carried a hint of mockery. Looks like you found out. You can start saying your last words now. In that instant, Lei Aoqiong felt as if a huge wave had been set off in his heart. An unprecedented look of shock covered his entire face. The pair of purple eyes in front of him seemed to be looking at a messenger from hell. He, who had almost forgotten to be afraid, was already feeling a trace of fear. However, In the next second, Lei Aoqiong's heart was completely replaced by a monstrous rage. Along with a cold smile, thick disdain emerged once again. "Ha ha, little bastard, you underestimate me." A violent wind blew, and a majestic roar resounded through the sky. Lei Aoqiong's eyes flickered with violent lightning. Then he raised his arms, and a towering aura erupted. "Today, I'll show you the true power of the Thunder Saint Physique." True power. His voice was like thunder, and everyone's heart skipped a beat. Boom! Suddenly, pillars of lightning shot out of Lei Aoqiong's body like lightning dragons. Bang! The terrifying power pushed Chu Hen back. Then, a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Brother Chu Hen, Yao, Long Xuan Xuang, Mu Feng, and the others were all shocked. Before anyone could react, thousands of lightning bolts appeared in the sky. Thunderclouds covered the sky, causing the earth to darken and the sky to lose color. Pillars of lightning fell from the sky and entered Lei Aoqiong's body. An unprecedentedly powerful aura erupted from Lei Aoqiong's body. At that moment, everyone could feel the destructive aura from Lei Aoqiong's body. Thunder God's fury. Clang! Endless lightning bolts turned the sky and earth upside down, causing the sky to change. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a huge shadow floated out of Lei Aoqiong's body. This illusory figure was 1,000 meters tall, with 4 limbs exposed. It wore a mighty and extraordinary war god's armor. Its huge head was also covered by a helmet. Its huge eyes shot out 2 rays of resplendent golden light, and in its right hand, it tightly held a heavy hammer that flickered with lightning light. The heavy hammer was nearly 300 meters long, sharp at the top and wide at the bottom. It was extremely intimidating. What a terrifying aura. Is this the ultimate power of the Thunder Saint Physique? There was no one present who wasn't shocked, and there was no one who didn't tremble. The hearts of Flying Immortal Palace Master, Demon Slaughter Palace Master, and the other people of Mount Kunlu, as well as Chu Hen's group of friends, were all stretched taut. The chaos of the entire Mount Kunlu stopped at the same time. Roar! Roar! Even the demonic beasts couldn't help but let out deep roars. Lei Aoqiong was like a god in the middle of the huge lightning shadow. The blood at the corner of his mouth and his ragged clothes made him look even crazier. He stared at the tiny Chu Hen in front of him, and a savage look appeared on his face. Hee, what a pity. You're not strong enough right now. So just die. Die! Rumble, thunder roared through the sky, and the deafening sound was like an army of thousands of men and horses. The giant, godlike shadow swung its huge hammer, leaving behind pillars of lightning that pierced through the sky. It stirred up an irresistible aura of destruction as it smashed down on Chu Hen's head. The spectacular scene was like a huge mountain pressing down on him. Their auras weren't on the same level at all. Lei Aoqiong, who was in the ancient eternal realm, didn't hold anything back. At this very moment, Chu Hen was as small as a small boat in the middle of an ocean storm. What awaited Chu Hen was nothing but ashes. No! Long Xuan Xuang's eyes widened, and she cried out in panic. However, her cry was drowned out by the thunderous roar. Boom! It was like a star exploding. Waves of air shot into the sky, and the power that could topple mountains and overturn seas burst forth like a tsunami. Then, everyone's pupils shrank, and their eyelids twitched. They saw that the heavy hammer, which could destroy heaven and earth, had come to a halt above Chu Hen's head, and blocking the heavy hammer was an incomparably sharp, blood-colored scythe. The gigantic sickle seemed as if it had been soaked in blood, and it emitted a powerful sharpness that caused people to tremble. What caused people to be even more shocked was that behind Chu Hen's back, a gigantic and demonic shadow also appeared. The power of the heavens. Chapter 955. Buzz. Buzz at this moment. It was as though heaven and earth were trembling uneasily. This sudden scene caused everyone inside and outside of the Thunder Saint Palace to fall into a daze. The anticipated scene of Chu Hen being smashed to pieces did not appear. Instead, What replaced it was an even more shocking and horrifying scene. The huge, blood-red scythe that appeared out of thin air intercepted the destructive giant hammer without any warning. All of their gazes were filled with shock and astonishment as they looked at the other enormous demonic shadow that appeared behind Chu Hen. It was a figure that sat on a stone chair made of bones. It had a pair of pitch-black eyes without a trace of white. From afar, it looked as mysterious as a bottomless abyss. The giant scythe in its hand seemed to have been casually swung out and blocked Lei Aoqiong's fatal blow. This is... what? What monster? How terrifying! Shock, surprise, confusion, and doubt filled everyone's hearts. What appeared in front of everyone was definitely a spectacular scene. Turbulent waves of air whistled through the air and swept in all directions. The thunder god's phantom that was covered in lightning was earth-shattering. On the other hand, there was a shadow that emitted a boundless evil aura that made people feel an indescribable fear from the bottom of their hearts. What's that? More than 10 miles away from the Thunder Saint Palace, Xing Yi, the palace master of the Nine Magnificence Palace, and Gong Yangyu, the sect leader of Mount Kunlu, stopped fighting and stared solemnly at the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. What a terrifying, evil aura. What is that? Xiao Yong, the sect leader of the Thousand Worlds sect, asked in a low voice with a frown. Everyone's gaze turned to Gong Yangyu. However, Gong Yangyu shook his head and did not answer. Compared to the others around him, this was the second time Gong Yangyu had sensed this aura. The first time was during the massacre in the Xian Kuan Shao region. Previously, Gong Yangyu did not know the specifics. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he felt an indescribable fear. That's someone from Mount Kunlu. How could you not know? Xing Yi said coldly. Gong Yangyu still did not reply. This was because he could clearly sense that the sinister aura coming from Chu Hen's body was becoming increasingly cold. It was impossible for ordinary humans to be so evil. Even though Xiao Yong and Xing Yi, these two peak figures of the Eastern Victory State, were experienced and knowledgeable, they were still unable to determine what the enormous shadow with surging evil energy was in a short period of time. It was even more difficult to believe that Chu Hen still had such a shocking trump card. Their intuition told them that something even more shocking was yet to come. Hee. The ethereal and distant strange laughter seemed to pass through the vast sea of people and the barren ancient city, carrying a chill that poured into the depths of one's soul. Lei Aoqiong's eyes were ghastly like cold blades as he stood within the image of the lightning god. Besides feeling shocked, only boundless killing intent surged out from his eyes. You're really surprising me more and more. Ha. Lei Aoqiong let out a maniacal laugh. The 9 heavens, lightning tribulation, continued to strike down. It was like 100 rivers of the Milky Way pouring into the enormous body of the thunder god. Chi, pung. The heavy hammer that spat out lightning arcs and the 4-leaf sickle that flickered with the light of blood instantly collided, bursting out balls of sparks and layers of flaming light waves. The unprecedented spectacular scene could be said to be earth-shattering. The sky darkened, and the clouds surged. All sorts of patterns of light flew in the void like rain. Looking from afar, it was like 2 giant gods were fighting each other. What a disgusting expression. Chu Hen's gaze turned cold, and the evil god behind him immediately released a baleful and evil aura that overflowed the heavens. A powerful airwave surged out, and the huge blood-colored scythe exploded with a scarlet blood-colored radiance. Bang! An explosive sound rang out. Sparks flew in all directions, and electric arcs were like rain. That lightning god-heavy hammer was directly bounced off. Then, the blood-colored scythe swung upwards. Xiao, an incomparably swift and fierce crescent blood blade, slashed through the air. It was like a light shuttle that could trace back thousands of years, dragging a vigorous cyclone behind it as it slashed towards the thunder god's real shadow. Bang! The terrifying power was like a divine ray that poured into a mountain, and a huge crack appeared on the thunder god's real shadow's body. The unstoppable shadow blade penetrated the thunder god's shadow went straight inside and hit Lei Aoqiong's body squarely. A string of blood splattered in the air, and a long and narrow wound appeared on Lei Aoqiong's chest. What terrifying power! The hearts of everyone present were filled with shock. However, Lei Aoqiong was so angry that he laughed. He wiped the blood on his chest with one hand, and a ferocious look like that of a wild beast exploded in his eyes. Congratulations, you've successfully angered my murderous intent again. Lei Aoqiong roared angrily, and his anger continued to rise, increasing exponentially. Anyone would be able to sense the rapidly rising hatred and resentment coming from the other party. It cannot be any worse. This was unprecedented. He stared fiercely at the young figure that was releasing endless evil energy, and his eyes were spitting fire. You really deserve to die. Deserve to die. His roar shook the heavens, and it shook the soul. Lei Aoqiong's expression became incomparably ferocious, and at the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Buzz! In the next instant, a wave of golden, illusionary flame spread from within his body. The aura of the lightning god phantasm also multiplied. Layers of wild and violent golden flames covered the entire body of the lightning giant. An unprecedented majestic aura directly suppressed the entire place. In an instant, the space within a radius of tens of thousands of meters became restless. Even sect master Qiao Yong of the Thousand Worlds sect, Palace Master Xing Yi of the Nine Magnificence Palace, and Gong Yangyu's group couldn't help but turn pale with fright. He's actually burning his life force. Qiao Yong frowned, and his expression was solemn. Xing Yi also clenched his fists. This guy, burning his life force, was an extremely extreme secret technique. Although it allowed one to explode with greater power for a short period of time, its greatest side effect was the loss of one's lifespan. It was true that ancient Eternals could live forever, but that didn't mean they could never die. But once they burned their life force, they would lose at least a few hundred years of their lifespan. It was definitely a loss of 800 years. From this, it could be seen just how angry Lei Aoqiong was. Just how much did he want to kill Chu Hen? Before Qiao Yong and Xing Yi could recover from their shock, Gong Yangyu's figure had already turned into a streak of light and shot forward. The Thunder Saint Palace's side could be said to have thrown the world into chaos. Gales raged, wreaking havoc in the sky. In the blink of an eye, Lei Aoqiong's skin was already wrinkled, and silver strands appeared in his black hair. The corner of his mouth was stained with blood, making him look even more like a demon from hell. To be able to force me to this point, you should be proud. Today, all those who offend my Thunder Saint Palace will be executed. Rumble. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts fell from the sky, and everything in the world lost their splendor. Everyone felt as if doomsday had arrived. The expressions of the people from Mount Kunliu changed again and again, and their eyes trembled again and again. However, the young figure standing in front of the lightning giant that was covered in golden flames was still as dazzling as a star. Everything that had happened today was all caused by him. There was no fear or panic on his face. There was only a depth that others couldn't see through. Facing Lei Aoqiong, who was willing to sacrifice everything to kill him, Chu Hen's eyes rippled slightly. It seems like I'll have to use in the end. Buzz buzz. Chu Hen slowly closed his eyes, then suddenly opened them. In the next instant, his demonic purple pupils were actually suffused with a hint of evil red. Kiki. Then, a strange, bone-chilling howl resounded through the sky. The hearts of everyone present trembled. They could only see the demonic figure sitting on the skull chair in the sky, behind Chu Hen letting out a complacent laugh. That pair of ink-black, abyss-like eyes looked at Chu Hen as if it was looking at its own masterpiece. It raised its other hand, and its huge palm face down. Sharp thorns shot out of its palm. Swish, swish, swish. The thorns rapidly extended, and then they actually stabbed into Chu Hen's back. Nearly 100 thorns had all sunk deep into his flesh. Big Brother Chu Hen, Yi Yao, who was in the area below, was so shocked that her pretty face turned pale. Long Xuan Xuang, Dan Jun, Mu Feng, Lung Lingyan, the flying immortal temple master, and even Lei Jia and Lei Jixin from the Thunder Saint Palace were also shocked. No one knew what Chu Hen was doing. This is a sacrifice? Lei Xiaolan, who had been standing behind Lei Jixin, couldn't help but tremble. Kiki, accompanied by the increasingly shrill laughter of the evil god, a rain of blood quietly rose between heaven and earth. What was even more shocking was that streaks of illusory bloody light actually flew out from the ruins below. These bloody lights came from the corpses of those who had died in the fierce battle. The evil god's power was born from slaughter, and it was born from destruction. The more slaughter, the more power Chu Hen obtained. There are tens of thousands of slaughters here, and an unparalleled power of slaughter was rapidly gathering. The wind and rain of blood were monstrous. Endless bloodlight gathered in all directions around Chu Hen like a tornado. The endless amount of evil energy released caused the temperature of the entire world to drop to zero. Chu Hen's eyes were bloodshot, and the curve of his lips was like a curved knife. At this moment, he seemed to be the evil god that had descended into the world. From today onwards, there will no longer be a Thunder Saint Palace in this world, an irresistible sentence. It was like a sentence from the god of death. Lei Aoqiong laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. Then let's see if you have the ability. Surrounded by countless bolts of lightning, the heavy hammer with the power to lift a mountain was raised high. Lightning flashed, thunder roared, and a storm raged. A power that could destroy heaven and earth rose like a tsunami. At the same time, the power of slaughter that filled the world quickly entered Chu Hen's body from all directions. The incomparably violent evil god's power was like a torrent, crazily entering his meridians, flesh, and even starting to seep into his soul. Chu Hen's power and aura increased at an extremely fast speed. He instantly reached the peak of the 7th level of the sky, profound realm. Everyone inside and outside of the Thunder Saint Palace was shocked. But as Chu Hen's cultivation increased, his aura also became evil and cold. The emotions revealed by those eyes were no longer human emotions. Fear. It wasn't just the people of the Thunder Saint Palace. At this moment, even those close to him, like Yao, Long Xuan, Haozi, and Mu Feng, felt an indescribable fear. This feeling was as if the real Chu Hen was about to disappear, and what was about to be created was an evil creature of slaughter. The world spun, and the world moved. Roar! Roar! The many demonic beasts below all roared at the sky, as if welcoming the arrival of the evil god. Screech! Just as Chu Hen's aura was about to reach the 8th level of the sky profound realm, a loud and passionate phoenix cry suddenly reverberated in his mind. This phoenix cry was like the sound of nature that passed through the vast mountains and rivers and the infinite stars. It passed through layers of heartstrings and reached the depths of his soul. Suddenly, the connection between Chu Hen and the evil god was abruptly cut off, and the slaughter energy that was crazily injected into Chu Hen's body was all shattered. Then a 7-colored light surged out of his body like a divine cloud, like a gorgeous, colorful flame burning the sky. Chu Hen was stunned. He frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Why?" "I'm sorry." A clear and melodious voice was transmitted, completely different from the hoarse and deep voice in the past. "I'm very sorry about what happened to Luo Mengchong, but you really should stop. Enough is enough." Hua! As soon as he finished speaking, a mighty multicolored flame surged out of Chu Hen's chest. Among the 7-color divine light, a slender and tall figure appeared in front of Chu Hen's eyes. Her beautiful long hair danced in the wind, like a fairy bathed in fire. Rumble. At the same time, the destructive thunder and lightning hammer once again set off endless death energy, falling toward Chu Hen, and the whole sky was trembling. "Disappear!" Lei Aoqiong roared angrily. The rolling thunder and lightning storm fell like a raging tide. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. At this time, the slender and gentle figure that suddenly appeared in front of Chu Hen turned around. From the side of her beautiful face, to the face that was not tainted by a trace of the mortal world, to the gaze that was moving over, It was like a glimpse of a startled swan, causing people to feel an unforgettable, breathtaking feeling. Remember, don't use that power again. In the future, you will have to rely on yourself. Her red lips moved slightly, and her beauty was more stunning than the snow lotus in the sky. Their eyes met, and 10,000 years passed in a single glance. When we meet again, I hope you could surprise me. When they meet again, when the prosperity fell, the sky was full of dust. Chu Hen's pupils shrank, and his heart felt like it was being pulled by an invisible hand. Hua! In an instant, a colorful light shrouded the slender, tall, and beautiful figure. Then, like a huge lotus flower in full bloom, a terrifying aura surged out, screech. Along with the peerless cry of a phoenix, a divine bird with a wingspan of more than 1,000 meters rushed out of the light. It was dazzling and full of vigor. Chapter 956. That's looking at the enormous divine bird that had suddenly appeared in the sky. Everyone inside and outside of the Thunder Saint Palace who had witnessed all of this revealed expressions of deep shock. Divine light filled the sky, and sacred radiance was like fire. The entire sky seemed to be engulfed in a blazing cloud that swept across the heavenly river. Disappear! Lei Aoqiong's crazed roar was deafening. His scarlet eyes and distorted face were as sinister as a demon from hell. The surging power of wind and lightning exploded in the sky, shaking the mountains and rivers in all directions. At the cost of burning his life force, Lei Aoqiong wanted to kill Chu Hen. Rumble, the real silhouette of a lightning giant, covered in golden flames, directly unleashed the most terrifying attack. The huge hammer smashed down like a mountain, and thousands of lightning tribulations coiled around it like silver pythons and lightning dragons. It was dazzling like a divine artifact that could destroy the world. The heavens in all directions were trembling incessantly. Everything in the world submitted to Lei Aoqiong's monstrous power. Screech! At the same time, a huge fire lotus bloomed in the area in front of Chu Hen. Surging waves of heat covered the sky and earth, accompanied by a resounding phoenix cry. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, surrounded by multicolored divine light, spread its wings over 1,000 meters wide. The imposing aura that looked down on all things was like a divine phoenix descending to the world. Endless light and sacred radiance shone like the sun in the sky. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, the enormous real silhouette of the heavenly flame sparrow swept up an earth-shattering might to meet the attack. Bang! Boom! It was earth-shattering, and the sky exploded. The sacred winged heavenly flame sparrow, which was over 1,000 meters long, collided with the lightning giant's hammer. In that instant, the world lost color and huge waves surged into the sky. Like a collision between a meteorite and a star, a terrifying storm of air swept across the sky. Rings of light and flames rose into the sky, and dazzling waves of light swept out. The multicolored divine light mixed with tens of thousands of lightning arcs wantonly danced in the air. The ground trembled, and rocks shot into the sky. The scene before them seemed to have fallen into an illusion. Bang! A violent explosion followed, and the pupils of everyone present couldn't help but shrink. They saw the heavy hammer in the hand of the lightning giant shatter inch by inch, shattering in an unbelievable manner. What terrifying power? Where did this guy come from? How could he have so many terrifying trump cards? The mountain-like heavy hammer was like an exploding sun. Billions of lightning bolts flickered in the sky and illuminated the earth. The powerful multicolored divine light did not slow down and continued to howl. The sacred wing heavenly flame sparrow's eyes were like the stars, the sun, and the moon. It revealed an incomparable determination as it charged toward Lei Aoqiong, who was in the shadow of the lightning giant. Fury, surprise, astonishment, and extreme hatred and rage converged on Lei Aoqiong's face. In the end, it transformed into frenzied, killing intent that didn't care about anything. Whoosh! Lei Aoqiong's long hair danced wildly in the wind. In an instant, his hair had turned white, and his face was full of wrinkles. Strange flames erupted from him like raging waves, and the lightning giant that enveloped him became especially solid. Its terrifying aura was like that of a god of war. Everyone was shocked by Lei Aoqiong's actions. At this point, he and Chu Hen would definitely not rest until one of them was dead. He burned a large amount of his life force, no longer caring about the consequences. Meanwhile, Chu Hen, who was standing behind the sacred wing heavenly flame sparrow, looked a little lost. The scene that had just happened kept repeating in his mind. Just a few seconds ago, that slender and gentle figure had turned sideways without the slightest bit of precaution. From the side profile of that peerlessly beautiful face to that pure and untainted complexion, that flowing gaze was like a glimpse of a startling swan. It was an unforgettable, breathtaking sight. He had been caught off guard. It was like a shallow footprint inadvertently left in the snow, pouring into his memory. Remember, don't use that power again. In the future, you will have to rely on yourself. Her red lips parted slightly, and her voice was not as hoarse as it used to be. Instead, it was as mellow as glass. Even though it was the first time he had heard it, it was strangely familiar. The stunning scene was even more stunning than the snow lotuses in the sky. When their eyes met, it was as if 10,000 years had passed in a single glance. When we meet again, I hope that you will amaze me. When they meet again, when the bustling scene came to an end, when everyone had left, Chu Hen's pupils trembled, as if he had just walked out of an illusion and woken up from a dream. Everything in the world paled in comparison. That incomparably majestic scene that seemed as if it could tear the sky apart was truly shocking. "Come back," Chu Hen could not help but call out. However, as he listened to the slightly trembling voice behind him, the pair of star-like eyes in front of him became even more dazzling. Screech! A loud and clear phoenix cry resounded through the sky. The divine bird with a wingspan of over 1,000 meters erupted with an endless aura of destruction and immediately transformed into a giant shadow blade that pierced through the sky. The huge blade shocked the heavens, and its momentum pierced through the sky. Lei Aoqiong's eyes were sinister, and his expression was ferocious. Hee, good timing. He burned his life force wantonly, and the power of his sacred body of thunder was completely unleashed. Rumble! Huge lightning dragons entwined around the giant's illusory body. Then, the giant's arms, which had the power to pierce through the heavens, blasted towards the shadow blade. Bang! Clang! The collision of the two could be said to be earth-shattering. An unprecedented storm of power collided, instantly igniting the ninth heaven tide. The 1,000-meter-wide shadow blade was like a crescent moon flying from the heavens, and it collided head-on with the lightning giant. Turbulence resounded through the sky. An earth-shattering shockwave spread out, and everyone from the Thunder Saint Palace and Mount Kunliu was sent flying. Layers of rubble and rubble were crushed into powder. Colorful rays of light dyed the entire sky. Countless bolts of lightning shot out in all directions. The doomsday-like scene caused everyone's pupils to tremble. Screech, the Shadow Wing's divine blade, was peerlessly powerful and incomparable. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, it chopped off the arms of the lightning giant with a heavenly light that could cut through the tides and waves. Then, it forcibly poured into the lightning giant's body and arrived in front of Lei Aoqiong. Fear appeared on Lei Aoqiong's face for the first time. The Grim Reaper's footsteps were fast. "No," Lei Aoqiong shouted unwillingly. At the same time, everyone from the Thunder Saint Palace cried out in shock, trembling. Time did not stop, and neither did space. Screech, the Shadow Wing God Blade, mercilessly sliced the lightning giant in two, slicing through its chest. The Thunder Saint Palace's sacred Lord Xiong, a peak ancient eternal realm expert, was also sliced into two. A rain of blood sprayed through the air, and a short and hurried scream became the sound that lingered in everyone's ears. Lei Aoqiong's body was sliced in half. Unease, fear, and resentment quietly froze on his face. The entire world seemed to have slowed down, and the scene in front of them instantly caused everyone's mind to go blank. Lei Aoqiong had lost. The Thunder Saint Palace had lost. The impact of this unshakable colossus on everyone's hearts was unimaginable. Chu Hen's eyes were wide open. He felt as if a lifetime had passed. He had never thought that the sacred wing heavenly flame sparrow would use such a method to prevent him from receiving the evil god's killing power. At the same time, Chu Hen knew very well what the consequences of his opponent's actions were. All of this had happened too suddenly. The emotions in Chu Hen's heart were hard to describe. Unspeakable sorrow, sadness, and guilt. Could it be that he was going to lose another friend? His regret and longing for Luo Mengchong multiplied. Even though he had flattened the Thunder Saint Palace, the shackles in his heart were still strong. Lei Aoqiong let out an extremely unwilling roar. He looked at the young figure in front of him from afar, and his boundless hatred rapidly swelled. "Let's be annihilated together." Screech. As soon as he finished speaking, Lei Aoqiong's body exploded, and a powerful storm surged out of the nine heavens. Chapter 9:57. Hiss. An incomparably heavy and violent tremor swept across the sky once again, and a sky-high energy storm surged out from the nine heavens. The enormous wave of energy and lightning was like a tornado, and Lei Aoqiong's body instantly exploded into thousands of pieces. The terrifying energy covered the sky and extended into the sky above the Thunder Saint Palace. Oh my God! Everyone in and out of the Thunder Saint Palace turned pale with fright. Their hearts trembled, and they couldn't help but feel as if they were in a dream. Ancient eternal realm, Lei Aoqiong. To think that he would die like this in this world. At this moment, everyone in the Thunder Saint Palace was filled with despair, and their faces were filled with endless sorrow. In the next instant, the earth-shattering power, which was like a storm whirlpool, drowned Chu Hen within it. Big Brother Chu Hen, Yao Long Xuan Xuan Mu Feng, Haozi, and the rest all paled. But then, a piercingly cold aura flashed through the chaotic energy storm. It's the sect master, the Demon Slayer Hall leader, Wen Liang, and the Void Hall leader Xiao Wua, exclaimed in unison. The rest of Mount Kunliu also revealed expressions of disbelief and joy. Sect master? Could it be Gong Yangyu? That's right, it's Gong Yangyu. A commotion that was filled with astonishment immediately arose in the surroundings, especially the spectators in the outer regions, who were extremely surprised. Gong Yangyu, who had disappeared for almost 20 years, actually appeared at this time. In Gong Yangyu's hand was Chu Hen, who had already fainted. His handsome face looked pale and skinny, and his entire body was covered with cuts and bruises. It made people sigh, but also made them palpitate unspeakably. It's over. Rest well. Gong Yangyu sighed softly. Before the crowd could react to Gong Yangyu's sudden appearance, an even more shocking figure appeared. Look over there. One World Sect and Jihua Palace. What? My God, even the two of them, Hua. The hearts of the people present could be said to be rising and falling like waves. In the sky above the area behind Gong Yangyu, two other transcendent figures with peerless auras quietly appeared under the sky. Myriad World sect leader, Xiao Yong. The palace master of Jihua Palace, Xing Yi. Everyone could no longer express their emotions. If Lei Aoqiong was included, then the three eternal realm experts of the victorious Dong Prefecture were all here. However, there would never be such a day in the future. Xiao Yong and Xing Yi's appearance caused everyone to freeze on the spot. However, their faces were also surging with indescribable complexity. Lei Aoqiong had lost. In the eyes of the world, that 1 in 10 million probability had become a reality. The entire Thunder Saint Palace had been defeated by Chu Hen alone. From today onwards, the three great sects were no longer invincible existences. In a shock, Thunder Saint Palace head Lei Zhe clenched his fists. Hatred and murderous intent spewed from his eyes. But just as he was about to vent all his anger on the remaining people of Mount Kunliu, Gong Yangyu's gaze shot towards him like a sharp sword. Lei Zhe's mind shook. When he met Gong Yangyu's gaze, it was as if he was facing the threat of death in that instant. Leja seemed to understand something. His entire face became pale and powerless. Thunder Saint Palace was truly finished. Do the two of you have any other instructions? Gong Yongyu turned to look at Xiao Yong and Xing Yi. The two looked at each other and couldn't help but shake their heads and smile bitterly. Instruction? What else was there to instruct? Even Lei Aoqiong was dead. What else could they do? Even if they killed Chu Hin now, it would not change the fate of Thunder Saint Palace. Moreover, if they attacked the unconscious Chu Hin now, not only would Gong Yongyu protect him with his life, the Wan World Sect and Zhuhua Palace would also become the laughingstock of the world in the future. After a long period of dead silence, a sigh was heard. Sigh. Xiao Yong sighed meaningfully. Your Mount Kunliu has really thrown us a terrible mess. Xiao Yong's reply had already explained everything. Gong Yongyu nodded slightly and said loudly, Since that's the case, I will take my leave first. I'll have to trouble the two of you. Xing Yi snorted coldly. Xiao Yong waved his hand and didn't say anything else. Gong Yangyu's gaze turned cold. His aura was as imposing as a mountain as he shouted, Return to Mount Kunliu? Yes. Sect Master. Everyone replied in unison. Immediately, the people of Mount Kunliu retreated from Thunder Saint Palace like the tide. Many demonic beasts roared towards the sky and left in a wave of earth-shattering roars. No one in Thunder Saint Palace dared to stop them. The world had no doubt that if it wasn't for the arrival of the Wan World Sect and Zhuhua Palace, Mount Kunliu would have completely massacred Thunder Saint Palace. The weather changed, and the province fell into chaos. In the blink of an eye, the prosperous Thunder Saint Palace was reduced to ruins. Watching the people of Mount Kunliu leave, everyone in Thunder Saint Palace felt powerless. Mountains were flattened, luxurious buildings were reduced to ruins, and thousands of broken corpses were scattered everywhere. Lei Jixin stood in a pile of rubble in a daze. All of this was thanks to Chu Hin. The cold wind whistled, and there was a bone-piercing chill. Palace Master Lei Zhi raised his head blankly and looked at the two powerful figures in the sky. What was the fate of Thunder Saint Palace going to do next? The heavens and earth changed, and the province changed. No one remembered how that day ended. The only memory that remained in everyone's mind was the collapse of the mountains when the 7 stars fell from the sky, as well as the fierce battle that shook the heavens and earth after the Heavenly Empire and the Valley of Innocence was reduced to ruins. The victorious Dong province finally welcomed an unprecedented upheaval. The unshakable behemoth Thunder Saint Palace became the last sacrifice for Chu Hin's revenge. In just a few months, more than 1 million people in the victorious Dong province lost their lives. 2 top sects and a giant force were destroyed one after another. A pair of small wings flapped, stirring up a storm that engulfed the province. Chu Hin's name not only resounded throughout the victorious Dong province, but also spread to other parts of the eastern continent. When the Taiching sect, Wind and Cloud Pavilion, Heavenly Bamboo Peak, and other sects received the news that Thunder Saint Palace had been destroyed, they felt as if the sky had collapsed. The appearance of Gong Yongyu, Xiao Yong, and Xing Yi, 2 ancient Eternal Realm experts, at the same time also caused people to speculate. Later on, there was even news that Gong Yongyu had reached the ancient Eternal State as well. During the battle between Chu Hin and Lei Aoqiong, an intense battle had also erupted in another area several kilometers away from Thunder Saint Palace, and the ones fighting were Gong Yongyu and Xing Yi. When this news came out, all the sects in the province fell into a deep unease. If that was really the case, one Gong Yongyu and one Chu Hin would be unrivaled in the entire victorious Dong province. Chapter 958. It had been a year since the opening of the ancient Desolation Heaven domain, and the entire Eastern Victory Province had undergone an earth-shattering change. The ranking of the major sects, which had been stable for 1,000 years, finally welcomed an earth-shattering reshuffle. The Thunder Saint Palace, a colossal existence, was completely uprooted in just a day. Its supreme soul, Lei Aoqiong, had died in battle. This battle had made Chu Hin and the entire Mount Kunliu. It had also caused the Eastern Victory Province to be plunged into a chaotic whirlpool for a long period of time. However, under this turbulent province, there were also many undercurrents surging. "Master," a voice filled with reverence and respect quietly broke the silence in the darkness. This was a spacious and luxurious hall. Whether it was the floor tiles, the pillars, or the steps, they all exuded an extraordinary and mysterious aura. "The heaven-diverting token has appeared." Buzz. When the three words "heaven-diverting token" were spoken, the airflow in the hall seemed to tremble. A figure sitting at the top of the hall suddenly stood up. This person was burly, and his entire body was shrouded in a gorgeous blue robe. His hands were as thin and sharp as an eagle's claws. Could it be related to the series of upheavals in the Eastern Victory Province? Master is wise. The heaven-diverting token is with Chu Hen. A figure at the center of the hall respectfully knelt on the ground. His aura was as cold as a frost blade. "Continue." The blue-robed old man replied coldly. "A year ago, Chu Hen was merely an ordinary disciple of Mount Kunliu, and his cultivation was only at the profound world realm. However, after he came out of the ancient desolation heaven domain, his strength continued to soar, and he even took the lives of millions of people. In the Battle of the Thunder Saint Palace, Lei Aoqiong died in battle. Moreover, this subordinate personally witnessed the descent of the evil god's phantom. The last sentence was spoken with great certainty, and his tone was unusually firm. Truly astonishing. The figure at the top of the hall muttered in a low voice. From the profound world realm to the ancient eternity realm in less than a year. The heaven-diverting token is indeed a fascinating power. Master, please instruct me." The cold and gloomy figure in the middle of the hall lifted his eyelids, which flickered with a cold light. However, the blue-robed elder shook his head. "We can't act rashly for now. Right now, that Chu Hen could be said to be the focus of everyone's attention. Once we make a move, it will definitely arouse the suspicions of the other sacred clans. If we mess up like last time, and the Lord blames us, none of us will be able to bear the consequences." As soon as he heard the word Lord, the sharp aura on the other party's body immediately retracted. It was as if he was a god that existed everywhere. Even if he released too much of his aura, it would be a form of disrespect. Silence suffused the air, and even the air seemed to be slightly frozen. The old man in the blue robe pondered for a while. A pair of dark green eyes under the dark black robe was as frightening as a poisonous snake. The Eastern continent has clearly stated that the Saint race is not allowed to intervene in the grievances between the various provinces, and they are also not allowed to attack them without reason. Also, send people to keep a close eye on Mount Kuan, lose every move. Once this matter blows over, we will secretly take action to seize it. As for the Qiqian token, understood. The blue-robed elder waved his hand and said, "You may leave." Then, the figure's body twisted and floated like a ghost, like a reflection on the surface of the water. The next moment, a flash of light flashed, and the figure disappeared from where he stood. Looking at the empty great hall, the blue-robed elder let out a deep sigh. The Qiqian token, the heretic god's power. It's really amazing. Then the blue-robed elder walked down the steps and left the great hall. About half an hour later, the figure came to a palace shrouded in mysterious, colorful light. This palace seemed to be bathed in divine light, and it was as dazzling as an immortal's palace. The old man walked into the palace with light and steady steps. What was surprising was that although the outside of the palace was dazzling and resplendent, the inside was especially dark and cold. At first glance, only the luminous pearls inlaid on the walls glowed with a misty light. The empty great hall was gloomy and cold. The Lord, the blue-robed elder, walked to the bottom of the great hall, bowed, and muttered to himself. The Qiqian token has appeared again. Swoosh! In an instant, a figure sitting on a spacious stone throne in the great hall quietly opened his eyes. Under the dim light, it was impossible to see the figure's face clearly. Only a blurry and cold outline could be seen. Emitting a supreme majesty, his piercingly cold gaze was like a sword, coldly staring at the figure kneeling in the middle of the great hall. For more than 10 days, the chaos in the Eastern Victory Prefecture continued. However, Mount Kunliu ushered in the calm after the storm. It was just that under this calm, there was some uneasiness in the crowd. This uneasiness originated from one person. It's been more than half a month. Why is Chu Hen still in a coma? Let's ask sect leader Gong Yang to come and take a look later. But sect leader Gong Yang said that his injuries have all healed. That's right. Hua Shui also can't find any problems with Chu Hen's body. That's strange. This guy is really anxious. In an elegant courtyard, Mu Feng, Haozi, Yao, Long Shuang, and the rest were all frowning as they gathered together. During the battle that day, due to Gong Yang's timely arrival, Chu Hen did not suffer any fatal injuries. In addition, these days, Hua Shui wholeheartedly treated him. Logically speaking, he should have woken up long ago. However, he did not open his eyes for more than 10 days. This kind of situation really made them feel uneasy. I think you guys don't have to worry too much. Hua Shui stood up and said with certainty, I've checked just now. Chu Hen's breathing is very stable. There are definitely no other injuries on his body. As for why he hasn't woken up after so long, it must be because he suffered too much from losing Lady Mengshang. The mental burden is making him unwilling to face reality. He might wake up after a few more days. At the mention of Luo Mengshang, the crowd could not help but feel pity. Long Xuanchuang's red lips moved slightly. She shook her head and sighed. Everyone, go back first. Let him be alone for a while. The crowd did not say much. They nodded solemnly and left one after another. In the blink of an eye, the spacious courtyard became extraordinarily quiet. In the spacious and bright room, the window was open. One could see the azure sky and the picturesque scenery outside. The gentle spring breeze blew in from the window and shook the blue flower petals in the vase on the table. Chu Hen quietly laid on the bed and changed into clean and tidy clothes. On his handsome cheeks, a few faint scars that had not completely disappeared could be faintly seen. Meng Shang, he murmured in a low voice. Chu Hen could not help but frown. Even in his sleep, he seemed to be deeply immersed in grief. However, at this moment, the sound of a flute drifted over from an unknown place. This flute sound was especially ethereal and crisp. It touched the soul and tugged at the heartstrings. It was beautiful and pleasant. At this moment, Chu Hen's eyelids trembled slightly. His tightly furrowed brows also slowly relaxed. Then he slowly opened his eyes. Everyone's attention was focused on the beautiful sound of the flute. It was as if he had seen it before. It also seemed like a summoning. Chu Hen got up from the bed in a daze. His slightly weak face looked a little pale. Then he walked out of the room. As if he was being led by the flute sound, he walked in a certain direction. He did not alarm anyone along the way. It seemed like other than Chu Hen, no one else could hear that strange flute sound. Not long after, Chu Hen arrived at the side of a bridge. The bridge was located between two cliffs. It was quite imposing. On the other side of the bridge stood a figure wrapped in a loose black robe. The person was holding an emerald jade flute in his hand. His fair and slender fingers were nimbly pressing on the flute's holes. Under the cover of the black robe, the person's entire face could not be seen. However, the person's clean and fair side profile could be seen.